What? Don't scare an old woman like that, Verena said when she saw the two of them arrive out of nowhere. Grandma. Tessa hugged her grandma and her grandma hugged her back. So, what happened? I thought you were taking her to the island. Why did you come back? Did you not get to enter? The old woman asked. I should have told you that the headmaster wouldn't allow that. He is kind of an asshole in that way. The old woman shook her head as she remembered the previous headmaster who had been defeated by this current one and had their place taken away. No, Grandma. Look, this is Sylph. The jingling spirit slowly peered its head from behind Tessa. Sylph, this is my grandmother. Wah, you did it? Did you get yourself a spirit? Wait, why is your hair not changed? The old woman was confused, to say the least. I dyed it to hide, Grandma, Tessa said. Look. The air in the room moved a little, flipping the many books and stray papers lying around. You really did it. The old woman got emotional all of a sudden. If only your parents were here to see that. They would be so proud. Tessa got emotional with her grandmother too. Ning sighed as he watched the two family members cry with each other. Ma'am, I won't be returning to the school after this, Ning said without hesitating. What? The old woman was confused. This is everything you need to know about summoning in and out, Ning said. Please take this as my farewell gift. You really aren't going to come back? She asked. Where are you going? Here and there. I don't know yet, Ning said. But I will just roam around. I will come back to visit, but for now, it's goodbye. The old woman nodded and thanked Ning for everything he had done for her and her granddaughter. Ning smiled and disappeared. The grandma and granddaughter remained in the room, with massive smiles on their faces. Ah, you're finally back, Safandra said. She had waited alone for nearly half an hour before Ning had returned. Sorry about that. Had to spend some time explaining to the little girl's parents what had happened, Ning said. I also had to tell them to make the princess's new quarters away from the palace, so that even if she does go out of hand with her powers accidentally, it won't cause much damage. Ah, right, Safandar said. What were her powers again? Did she not show you? It's fire, Ning said. She can use fire now. I wonder how hot her fires can get. I will have to teach her later once she grows. All right. Let's go to the snow region. I'm curious, Safandra said. The two of them teleported away and arrived around the same region where Ning had brought the princess. He brought out some warm clothes for Safandra to wear and then fell to the floor to place with the snow. The two enjoyed each other's company while Safandra laughed the brightest laugh she had given out in a long time. I haven't heard you this happy in, actually never, Ning said. This is the first time you feel free. I haven't had much reason to smile for a while now, she said. Especially with the annoying people that keep staring at my hair. I did say you should have dyed it, Ning said. I know, but for some reason, it feels like dyeing my hair is my way of avoiding responsibility, she said. Responsibility? Of what? Ning asked. Responsibility for my planet, for the many people that died, Little Blue, and then also me, she said. I couldn't save them. I see, Ning said. Right, you did mention something about being in a military force or something like that. Something like that, Safandra said. The two of them stayed there for a while, playing with the unending snow and sleeping in the snowfall. Only after a long time had passed did they finally stand up. Is there anything left to do even? She asked. Do you want a spirit for yourself? Probably not. Although I don't see how that could be a bad choice, he said. So you do want one, she said. Spirits can survive even when they're out of their planet, right? Ning asked. Like what would happen if I took a spirit and left for a planet with no spiritual energy? It should be fine. You won't get to use the skills I suppose, she said. What about the spirit itself? Would it have any problem? I remember Little Blue being non-expressive back in Genesis, Ning said. No, that was because Genesis completely suppressed every power in the area. Since spirits are made up of spiritual energy, they won't work well in the suppressed areas, but in other areas, they should be fine even without the presence of spiritual energy, she said. Although, the prolonged effect might be something you should ask the system. System? Ning asked. Oh, that's, a few billion a day doesn't hurt me now, right? There will be some problem if there are multiple of them, but I guess that's enough for now, Ning said. What the hell? That's cheap. Awesome, Ning said. Buy it. He felt a space open inside of him. By now, there were 3 different spaces inside of him, and in the near future, he would have to start opening the fourth one. "Let's go get me a few spirits," Ning said with a bright smile. A few days had passed since Ning had left to search for the spirits. In the easternmost edges of the grassland, he had found Terra. Terra was a feminine spirit that couldn't speak or even have conscious thoughts. She hid around giant rocks that were impossible to traverse without being able to fly over the rock or in some other fashion get to her. At first, the spirit was immediately scared the moment Ning and Safandra arrived at her hiding place, but when they didn't do anything and just stuck around, her curiosity took the better of her and she came out. Ning took the opportunity to bond with her. There was really just a single thing he could say to entice the spirit. "Come with me and I'll take you to see the stars," he told the spirit. When the spirit realized he was talking about the sparkling things she always saw in the night, she immediately accepted the bond. After the bond was successful, Ning learned what new powers he had acquired from the bond. Terra was an earth spirit. Her powers had to do everything with earth, and how one could manipulate it. Ning created pillars, hovered giant rocks in the air, and created minerals out of nothing. He could even sense the structure of the ground around him and know if there was something in the earth that was not just rocks and minerals. They appeared in his sense as vacuums, and mostly they were simply tree roots. After learning how to use Terra's powers, Ning let her fly around him, and then he and Safandra went to look for the other spirits. The next spirit remained alone near an oasis. It remained hidden in the shrubs, so no passerby ever found it. However, Ning knew where it was, so he peered through the shrub and located the spirit. He used the same words to bond with the spirit that he later named Gray. Gray had powers that easily destroyed things. Plants lost their green at a single touch. Rocks turned to sand with barely any force. Metals rusted to nothing very easily. Human flesh rot with but a thought. Ning realized that it was quite a strong power and even an evil one from what he could see. However, it didn't take him long to realize that it was not something evil. It was something that was fundamental to the life and death of everything in the universe. Time and entropy. The spirit he named Gray had the power to speed up the entropy of anything and make it look like it was getting destroyed when all Ning was doing was forcing the thing he touched to age faster. "I have to admit, that's a scary skill," Ning said. "Thank God someone else didn't get it." Then, they moved on to the snowy mountains again since there was another spirit that had wandered here and was alone. Ning quickly formed another bond with the spirit saying the same thing. Since he wasn't promising his spiritual energy at all, he could continue to get more and more. The third spirit was named Void. That was because he gave Ning the power over space itself. He could warp it, split it, compress it, expand it, or create small portals to teleport things. All in all, it wasn't quite bad and Ning was happy with the powers he got from Void. Void, Terra, and Gray played around with each other, making noises of jingling bells, while Safandra looked at Ning to ask him a question. "You still want more?" she asked. "I think I'm done with it all, so we can leave anytime we want." I wouldn't say no to another one, but if you want to leave then let's do that," Ning said. "Although, before that, there's one place I need to visit." "Where?" Safandra asked. "I don't really know," Ning said, "but it should be around there." Ning pointed towards the east, which Safandra had no way of telling what he was pointing towards. "Sigh, let's go then," she said and flew up. Ning followed here, and they were quickly outside of the mountain with snow and were soon around mountains that were full of tress. Ning kept his eyes open and looked around for a while before he noticed something. There, he pointed towards the center of a massive forest, not very far from the lake that surrounded the volcano. There was a small pond at the center of the forest, and when Ning landed next to it, he saw a small stream of it flowing down the slope into the massive pond. Ning looked at the pond and smiled. He was here and he was looking at it. The origin of this planet. The water there was a little misty, but he could see the small ray of light coming from the tiny portal that led to a world where even his survival wasn't certain. "This isn't water, is it?" he thought. He remembered the thick, liquid chi back in Kumiya and knew that this was spiritual energy that was so dense that it turned liquid after a long time. He placed his hands into the liquid and immediately the spiritual energy rushed into his body, and surprisingly, his body was absorbing it all rather easily. Slowly, Ning was growing to rank 9 and then growing more and more to reach the legendary rank 10. "What's this? Drinking water?" Safandra asked and crouched to touch the liquid too. Ning was so into absorbing the liquid that he realized too late that Safandra had stuck her hands into the liquid and started sucking in the spiritual energy. He saw the shock and fear in her face along with a pained expression from violently absorbing so much spiritual energy at once. "Are you okay?" Ning asked as he pulled her back from the origin, but she wasn't responding at all. Instead, her eyes were wide as she realized what was going to happen now. Something awoke that was long asleep and a resounding voice spoke in her head. "Give me back my body." A massive battle had taken place in a world that was invaded by demons. This battlefield was located right in front of what was considered to be the final haven for humanity. All other humans in the world had died at the hands of the demons, and this was their final strike before they would eradicate all life on this planet. The demons were here to either enslave the planet or destroy it. The bondforgers of this planet had been fighting the demons for nearly 2 years now. No one knew how the demons were capable of opening portals over to other planets, but they had done it and now they were here to destroy Amy's home planet. Amy, a blue-haired girl, sent out a ball of fire toward the flying demon that couldn't even speak. It looked more bugged than anything as it flew around the battlefield, along with many other such bugs. Amy's fire struck the demon right into the throat and blasted it into two. However, that was just a single kill in what looked like a million different demons flying toward her. The flame in her hands turned into a spear that she launched as far as she could and surprisingly managed to impale 2 demons at once. Despite that, they were still losing. They had already lost 3 of the 5 spirit-bonded fighters in their military, and now 2 more were fighting high in the air against the generals of the demon army. Lightning flashed in the sky and something fell to the ground next to Amy. When she looked at what had fallen, Amy recognized her commander that was fighting. She was one of the remaining 2 spirit-bonded fighters, and now she was dead. She looked high in the air and saw the one remaining commander fighting with all he could. The wind ripped every common demon that approached him, but the generals still fought him and gave him a hard time. Amy turned to look back towards the giant wall that protected the normal survivors behind it, and then at the mountain, the peak of which was known to have a spirit living on top of it. A man appeared next to her and jammed a sword into the throat of the demon that was trying to attack her while she was distracted. The man was about to shout at her for being distracted when he too saw the corpse next to her. "Is that?" he asked. "The commander," Amy said. "We're going to lose if we go on like this." "What can we do but fight?" the man asked. "I have a plan," Amy said. "It's our last hope." "What plan could Before the young man could finish his statement, a demon pierced his chest from behind using its horns. "You bastard!" Amy cried and sent a fire spear through the demon's chest and killed him. The young man slipped from its horns but fell to the ground dead. Amy was devastated. She turned around to look away, but then she saw her commander's corpse. When she turned in the other direction, she saw nearly 1,000 different corpses. Most were civilians fighting to the death to get rid of the demons, but a few were from her corp. Her eyes grew hateful with anger as she turned to look at the demons. However, there wasn't much she could do with her rank 5 powers and blue hair. She needed something good. She needed something better. She turned back towards the mountain and decided to go along with her plan. Amy ran away from the battlefield and towards the wall. She feared what the security would do seeing her run away from the battlefield, but when she arrived at the gates, she realized it was wide open, with corpses strewn everywhere. Was it demons? Or deserters from the battlefield? She didn't have a time to think. Amy blazed through the road of the city, past the many corpses, ignoring them all, and not even waiting to see if any of them belonged to her little sister. She couldn't afford to stop. She finally arrived at the foot of the mountain and then ran up the mountain as fast as she could. Her legs hurt, and her feet blistered, but she persevered and kept going. Sounds of battle rung even this far away, and she could hear the cries of the dying in the city down below. But she couldn't afford to stop and take it in. She continued running. Finally, after nearly half an hour, she arrived at the peak of the mountain and saw a massive lake in it. At the center of the lake was a small piece of land with a gigantic tree growing on it. This was where people had said that they had seen a spirit many times before, but no one had seen it twice until now, so all she could do was hope. She jumped into the water, and using the fire she could create, she blasted her way over to the small island. She climbed up quickly and looked at the tree. "Spirit, come out, please," she said. "We need your help." Silence. There was no sound from the tree. Was the rumor wrong? "Spirit, if you are there, please come out. We need your help," Amy cried. "The demons are killing us. Please, help us." There was silence again. Amy didn't know what to do. If there was no spirit here, then Something flew out of the tree in a lazy fashion and flew at eye level around Amy. A spirit. Amy's hope was rekindled. The feminine spirit looked at Amy curiously and moved around her, checking everything. "Who are you, little blue-haired girl?" the spirit asked. "What? You can speak?" Amy was surprised. She had never heard of spirits being able to speak at all. "Do humans answer questions with a question?" the spirit asked. "Question? Oh, sorry. My name is Amy, spirit," Amy replied. "Amy, huh?" The spirit nodded to herself. "I have a name too. You may call me Safandra." Amy had never seen a single spirit that could even attempt to communicate before they were bonded with someone. However, this spirit was not just able to talk but was also highly wise from what she could see. Hell, the spirit had even named itself despite no one being around to influence its thought. Was it that advanced? If that was the case, would it also be stronger? Amy felt like she finally saw a silver lining behind this cloud of darkness that had been covering this land for the last 2 years. "Safandra, please help us. We are dying. The demons are killing us," Amy spoke. "Please, bond with me so I can go save the humans." Safandra flew around, quietly contemplating the offer. "What do I get from it, little blue-haired lady?" Safandra asked. What do you want?" "I can give you anything I have," Amy said. She didn't have time to argue about what the spirit could ask for or take from her. Her friends and family were dying, and she needed to quickly go save them. "Anything?" Safandra asked. "Anything," Amy said. "You want all the energy I collect? You can have it. I will give it to you for as long as you bond with me." That's not a bad condition, but you said I could have anything I want, right?" "I want something else," Safandra said. What is it?" Amy asked. Even though she was ready to give away anything, she was still a little hesitant. "Give me your body," Safandra said. "My body? What do you want my body for?" Amy asked. "I will take over your body, in exchange for whatever it is that you need me to do," Safandra said. "You really want my body?" Amy asked. "Forever?" "No, not forever," Safandra said. "How about I return it to you after I defeat the demons?" Amy's eyes went wide when she heard that. "You're sure you can defeat them?" she asked. "I have been here since before humans were but monkeys, fighting each other to get the sweetest fruit on the tree. Trust me, I am capable of defeating the demons," Safandra said. Amy tried to think for a moment, but she didn't have time to do that at all. "Okay," she said. "But what happens to me? You, why don't you take over my body in the meanwhile?" Safandra asked. "Oh, okay, I agree to everything," Amy said without hesitation. "I agree as well, little girl," Safandra said. A summoning circle appeared between both of them, and suddenly their bodies were swapped. The blue hair that was on Amy turned to violet, and Safandra opened her eyes. "I am a spirit." Amy spoke from her now spirit body. She admired it for a second before realizing that she had wasted quite a lot of time already. "Please, hurry." "Okay," Safandra said. "So, I don't have any spiritual energy?" Safandra was confused. She couldn't feel anything. She tried absorbing it from the air, but nothing remained in her body. "What's going on?" She looked confused for a second before realizing that all the spiritual energy she was gathering was going into her spirit body, which Amy had taken over. "What's going? Please, hurry. Save my people," Amy shouted. "Ah, yes. Let's go." Safandra jumped from the mountain and flew through the sky at such a speed that she broke the barrier of sound multiple times. Her human body could barely survive that sort of speed, but Safandra pushed away any things that would cause resistance against her body. She slowed down and gently floated down onto the battlefield, only to realize that she was too late. Everyone on the battlefield was dead. My head." Amy shook her spirit head as it got a little wobbly. She looked through it, but her head was getting groggy. She was barely able to register the massacre that was around them. "No," she spoke. My sister is in. Where's my sister?" "In the city," Safandra said. For some reason, she could see the memories left behind by Amy. "Come, little blue. Let's check out the city." She once again sent herself flying through the air to arrive at the city, only to find another massacre once again. Everyone in the city was dead. Safandra went around searching, and near the staircase of a house, found the body of a young girl with wide eyes and half her body missing. "Blue, don't look." Safandra turned to stop Amy from not looking at the image, however, she only then realized that there was something wrong with her. Little Blue? She called, and the spirit turned and gave a quizzing look. A horrified expression fell on Safandra's face when she realized what was happening. Because she was using Amy's spiritual energy instead of her own, the spirit was slowly regressing mentally as more and more spiritual energy was drained away. Soon, she would stop being able to think. Fortunately, they had made a pact where the spirit would gain the energy that the human absorbed. I can keep her alive, Safandra thought, but barely. If she wanted to help her improve her consciousness, Safandra would have to collect a lot of spiritual energy at once. From Amy's memories, pearls seemed to be a good way, but more than that, just jumping into the ocean should have been enough to gain back some consciousness. Safandra stopped thinking about that for the moment and went on to search for survivors, or even just the demons so that she could kill. However, there was no one alive in the entire world anymore. The humans were dead, and the demons had left. She had failed at her words to defeat all the demons and save the humans. Then, a curious look appeared on her face. Does that mean I don't have to give back the body just yet? She thought. Greed took over her, as well as the fascination she had for human life. As such, she decided to keep her words. I'm sorry, Little Blue, but I wish to remain human just a bit longer. Give me back my body, a voice rang, loud and clear. Ning, who had left to help Safandra, was surprised all of a sudden. Safandra stood up on her own, and the spirit that always remained hidden behind her flew out and looked at her threateningly. Little Blue, please listen to me. My name is Amy. Don't call me Little Blue. The spirit spoke out loud. Give me my body back right now, you liar. I will, Safandra said. Please, calm down. I won't calm down until I get my body back, the spirit said. You said you would give it back as soon as you finished saving the humans. Why did you not return it? I was too late, Safandra said. I couldn't save them at all, neither could I fight the demons. They had already left by the time I was there. Liar. The spirit shouted. If they're dead, then what is he? What's going on? Ning asked from the side after the spirit pointed to him. He wondered if the spirit had improved after gaining the spiritual energy from the origin, but then when he took into account the words that were being used here, he understood a whole different concept that hadn't even ever occurred to him. She took my body to save you guys, and yet she never went through our deal to return it after she saved everything, the spirit spoke. Little Blue, are you a human? Ning asked. I'm not Little Blue. My name is Amy, the spirit said, and yes, I am a human. Little B, I mean, Amy, please listen to me, Safandra said. This is not our world. Our world is somewhere far away. I was taken away a year after I took over your body, and now I'm here. I know I was wrong to take over your body and not return it to you, but I promise, I never broke our deal. I stuck to my words, Safandra said. What? This is not our world, she asked. What about my sister, my friends? Are all of humanity really dead? I'm afraid so, Safandra said. The spirit's face turned into one of fear and despair, and suddenly she broke out into a loud cry. Ning looked at her pitifully, and then at Safandra. So, you're a spirit? He asked. Yes, Safandra said. That was the secret you were keeping to yourself all this time? Ning asked. Yes, she said. I knew you'd judge me if I let you know. Well, not like I don't judge myself. I know I'm a horrible being for doing something to such a poor person. I suppose it's hard not to judge, Ning said as he heard the spirit in front of him cry his ears out. They quietly watched Amy cry for a long time as they stayed together in what were most likely Safandra's final minutes as human. Suddenly, a group of people arrived after hearing the cries of someone. When they saw the spirit, they were immediately surprised. They turned around to look and saw that Safandra had violet hair. With Ning's dyed hair still not changed, they didn't know that he had bonded to spirits as well. Instantly, a few of them prepared attacks to throw Safandra's way as they shouted at her. Release the spirit from your bond or we will kill you. Safandra chuckled. Any other time, she would have been angry and knocked a few of them far away, but instead, she was filled with melancholy this time. She turned to look at Ning and grabbed his hands. I was always alive in solitude for probably thousands of years. I never had a friend I could talk with, and as such, I had always envied humans. Thank you for being my friend for such a long time, Safandra said. Of course, Ning said. I would do it all over again. Safandra smiled and let his hands go. Do what we said now, the people cried out. Okay, I will, Safandra said and looked at Amy. Amy, Little Blue, Thank you for letting me use your body. I free you from this bond. Suddenly, two different summoning circles appeared below Safandra and Amy. Then, their bodies went back to each other. The crying spirit stopped all of a sudden and instead put on a somber face. At the same time, the human with a sad smile suddenly turned miserable and started crying loudly. Good, they said when they saw the bond being broken. After that, they all started chanting out conditions like they had planned it all along to try and get Safandra to bond with them. Leave, I'm not bonding with any of you, Safandra said. However, the people didn't listen. Instead, more people arrived and they started shouting over each other to bond with Safandra. Didn't she tell you to leave? Ning's voice boomed through the crowd, shocking them all. We are trying to form a bond with her. What is it to you? The people asked. Ning slowly stood up. She's my friend. Now leave, or else. His hair slowly turned violet, and 3 different spirits floated out of his body, all different from one another. Seeing 3 different spirits at one place, even the most greediest of them didn't dare try their luck. Thank you, Safandra said quietly. Of course, Ning spoke to the now spirit Safandra. Anything for a friend of mine. She smiled and said nothing else for a while. I guess I'm back to being a spirit again, she said. Do you want to become a human? I might have ways to do that, Ning said. Really? Safandra stopped. No need. Really? Ning was surprised. Yeah, it took me a while to realize, but as it turns out, I wasn't looking to become a human at all. I just wanted companions so that I didn't have to live my life in solitude, she said. Do you still want it? Ning asked. If you still want companionship, I will be your companion until the end of time and afterwards. With the words, Ning requested a bond, and Safandra didn't hesitate to accept. She wanted his companionship and a way out of the solitary life of a spirit. A summoning circle appeared below Ning and the two were bonded. Great, he said. Should we leave now? Safandra nodded, but then she looked at Amy that was still sulking on the ground. We should help her, she said. Of course, Ning said. He walked up to Amy and sat in front of her while Safandra came to sit on his shoulder. Amy, do you want to talk? She asked. Let me cry in peace, please, she said. Ning stayed quiet and decided to do nothing but stay there. Amy sniffled for a long while. The sky even turned dark in the time she was there doing nothing but crying. Amy, you can't keep sulking like this. You are the last of your people. If anything, you need to step up and move on, for everyone's sake, Ning said. I can't just forget about them, she said. She was horrified that Ning even suggested such a thing. I'm not telling you to forget about them. I'm telling you to do what your friends would have wanted you to do. What your sister would have wanted you to do. They may be gone, but their spirit lives on with you. You need to let them live, Ning said. Amy finally looked up. Yes, I can't sit here doing nothing. She quickly wiped away her tears. Well, what do you suggest I do? For now, come in there, Ning said and pointed at the spaceship behind him. You need a place to eat and rest for today. Regarding the rest, you can take your time. Ning took Amy into the spaceship and gave her something warm to eat, and then a place to sleep in. She cried herself to sleep, of course, but there was nothing Ning could do about that. Besides, crying was a much better option than letting it bottle inside her for now. Early morning, Ning woke up and went to check on Amy. She was still asleep from having slept in late last night, so Ning let her be and consulted with Safandra on what they should do now. They no longer had a need to stay, especially since Ning had reached rank 10 as a bond forger, but they couldn't just let Amy stay alone on this island. I guess we can stay with her for a while, right? How much longer is there even? Ning asked. 21 more days. Safandra asked. Let's explain the situation to Amy and see what she will say we should do. That does feel like the best option, Ning said and waited. After Amy woke up, he gave her some food, and while she ate, he explained everything that had happened when Safandra had taken over her body. I'm in a new planet? She asked. Yes, Ning said. There are no demons here? She asked. Demons? Ning was a little surprised by her questions. System, are there demons here? Ning explained to Amy what he heard, and she couldn't help but be happier. Afterward, Ning let her know about his plans and Amy said she did want to bond with a spirit if it wasn't going to take over her body and corrupt her will as Safandra had. Ning nodded and took Amy around the island to look for the spirit. He taught her what to say, but it wasn't until the 5th spirit that she finally found the right thing to say and bonded with a feminine spirit. She named the spirit, Mary. That was the name of her little sister. Through Mary, Amy gained the power of speed. She could become very fast both physically and mentally. She was so fast that she could run on top of water too. From what Ning could test, she could reach close to Mach 5 without much problem. Also, she was very much capable of thinking at an incredibly fast speed. Aside from that, she could also speed up healing in her body as well, while at the same time slowing down other aspects of her body, such as aging. That's not bad, Ning said after learning all of it. In fact, I want the same powers too. System, can I have those powers too? Yes, ignore the unnecessary ones and give me the rest, Ning said. Superspeed movement, superspeed perception, and superspeed thinking have been bought. The system bought the skills without letting know the price. That simply meant that Ning had so much energy that the price wasn't a problem at all. Should we leave now? Ning asked. Both Safandra and Amy nodded. Let's go. Ning and Amy appeared outside the island. Ning turned to look at the island one last time and then towards the edge to the north where he could barely see the ships there. He could go fight the headmasters there, but there was no need. Come, I'll take you to a place you can settle down and live your life. Ning took Amy towards the south where it was colder and visited a city called Harmoon. It was a small city in the middle of a small country by the name of Twintar. Ning helped her settle down there with the many spiritual pearls that Safandra had earned. He helped her however he could on behalf of Safandra, and after she was well adjusted a month or two later, he left. Ning felt like he had done it all in this world. He reached rank 10, bonded with spirits, and summoned beasts using the summoning circle. Now, all he wanted to do was go around and see the world, help his friends and students when he could, and just wait for the spaceships to come and take him away. Ning sat in front of a man in his late 20s that had great flowing green hair, a great beard and mustache on his face, and a 3-year-old girl playing with some sort of metallic toy in her arm. Ning gave a sympathetic smile and said, "So it really is a no, huh?" The man shook his head at what a shame it all was. "Yes, it is a no. This is quite a surprise to me, I must say. But I suppose it was more of a surprise to you than anything," he said. "If you had asked me this very question 4 years ago, I would have said yes, but now, I can't," the man said as he played with the child on his lap. "I can't leave them, and taking them away from here would be a crime in my eyes because I know what harsh life they would have to live there." Ning smiled a little and looked at the little girl. He thought of something and created something using the system. A small bottle appeared in his hands, one that was filled with some sort of silver liquid. "Hello." Ning crouched next to the little girl and spoke. "What's your name?" "My name is Freyna," the girl said, almost as if she had rehearsed it multiple times. "Ooh, Freyna, that's a nice name," Ning said, "isn't it?" "Yes, it's very nice," Safandra said from the side. She had been floating next to him, looking at everything with a fond smile on her face. "Are you a spirit?" the little girl asked. "Yes, I am," Safandra said. "Here, since I met you for the first time today, this is my gift to you," Ning said and handed over the bottle to the girl. The girl took it and looked curiously. "What is it, Papa?" she asked. "I don't know," the man said. He looked at it for a few seconds before he was given an answer and his eyes went wide. "Are you?" He looked at Ning. Ning smiled and looked at the child. "Drink it, it's tasty," he said. The girl didn't immediately drink it and instead looked toward her father for approval. There was no way the man was ever going to be opposed to this at all. "Drink it, Freyna," the man said, and the girl finally did as told. She gulped down the liquid, which Ning had made rather tasty for her. A bit of the silver liquid spilled down from the side of his mouth, but it quickly moved back into her mouth and disappeared. "Tasty," the girl said after she had finished drinking it. "Time to test," Ning said. Suddenly, something moved inside the little girl as things started spilling out of her skin. It was the same silver liquid, only this time it formed some sort of suit around the little girl, with only her face not covered. "Wow, Papa, look." She showed the suit to her father and his eyes went wide with shock. Taran could have never thought that Ning would gift his 3-year-old daughter a suit just like his own. No, even better. "That's amazing, Freyna. Thank Uncle Ning for it," he said. "Thank you," the girl said. "You're so cute." Ning pinched her cheeks a little. As his hands left, the suit went back into her body. "Go play with your mommy." "Okay. Papa has some things to talk to Uncle Ning with," Taran said and sent away his kid. "I've locked the suit for now, and it will only be active after her 15th birthday. You can activate it using Wendy whenever you want to. I suggest you do that and train her when you can. Aside from that, it will automatically activate whenever she's in danger, and the autopilot will take over. Have your daughter give it a name herself, Ning said. Thank you, Taran said. Don't mention it, Ning said. I'm just a little saddened that you didn't get to go to the island with us. I couldn't help you get a spirit there. Although, you haven't done badly for yourself. Yes, I did quite well once I was able to gather spiritual energy, Taran said. The two of them talked for a while, with Safandra speaking in between the two from time to time. All right, I will have to leave now, Ning said. The guys are gathered for my farewell, and the spaceship will be coming any minute now. It's funny really, Ning continued. When I first came here, I thought it would be Safandra that would have a family here, and you would instead leave with me to the inner reaches of the galaxy. Oh, how wrong I was. I am a little sad that I couldn't go, I won't lie, Taran said. But that has nothing on the happiness I have for me right here. Ning smiled. I'm happy that you're happy. Goodbye Taran, live a good life. Taran smiled back. Goodbye Ning. I will hope that I meet you again in another life. Ning teleported away, and Taran remained there with a melancholic feeling in his heart. His one hope of seeing an advanced society was leaving him today. Papa, it won't work. I want to show it to Mommy, Freyna ran back to him. The smile returned back onto Taran's face. Is that so? Let me help you then, he said. Wendy activated the suit inside Freyna's body and the suit appeared around her. Ah, Mommy, look, she started shouting from outside, as the smiling Taran took his daughter back into the house, where his wife Pamela was working on their supper. Ning appeared on an empty island near the Darius Kingdom from where he had first sent out the signal out to the galaxy to call for help. On the island were 6 people gathered, 4 females and 2 males. You're late, teacher, a teenage girl with fiery red hair talked loudly to Ning as soon as he appeared. Behind her, Fifi floated around the 5 other spirits, speaking to them, while the rest made jingling noises. So, you guys are already here, huh? Ning said. We've been here for a while, Ning, Ori, who was wearing clothes with metallic bits all over it, spoke. Silver wasn't far away from her, together with the group of spirits behind her. I can't believe it. You really haven't aged a day, do you? Another girl wearing light blue clothes asked. Tessa's hair was now bright blue, contrasting well with the uniform she was wearing. Sylph was with the spirits too. Right? Here I thought he was awesome because he was so talented at such a young age. Makes me wonder what his age really is, Trevane said. He had grown a rather dense beard and looked like a lord of some land from the way he was dressed. His spirit, Ray, was also together with the other spirits. Hello, Ning, the violet-haired Amy spoke. Mary floated behind her mingling with the rest of the spirits, making jingling sounds all around. Finally, there was a young man that looked like he was 15 years old at most. There wasn't any defining feature on him aside from the fact that he had light blue hair. If not for Frost being amongst the spirit behind him, no one would recognize that this kid was the slime that went by his name Milo now. So, your friend's not coming? Milo asked. I'm afraid not, Ning said. He's with his family now. The 6 of them walked forward and sat down on a desk they had prepared beforehand and brought out some dishes they had prepared for this exact farewell. Ning let Gray, Terra, and Void go out and have fun with the rest of the spirits, and the rest couldn't help but be jealous at the fact that he had 4 spirits and had barely used them at all. Ning had used the spirits' powers many times, but of course, he didn't have to use them more than he had to. As such, the group never really saw him use the powers. They had fun together as they ate and talked, and soon some of them started tearing up at the thought of Ning leaving. Janice, the little princess that was 16 years old now, was the first to tear up. She stood from her place and went up to Ning and hugged him with her face dripping with tears. I don't want you to go, teacher, she cried, please stay. I'm afraid that's not possible, Janice. I need to go find my wife as I mentioned to you before. She's been alone for a long time, and I need to return as soon as I can, Ning said. But I won't see you again, she said. Ning didn't have an excuse for that. That was the truth. Given the speed at which the 2 worlds ran, just a year in Kumia would end up being something like 13 years in this world. Not to mention, if he had to spend even a single year in the next galaxy, which he most definitely would have to, over 600 years would have passed in this world. That was just too long of a time that even Amy couldn't survive with her delayed aging. I will most likely never see you again, any of you, Ning said. That's why I want you to remember this moment, our final moments together, and cherish them for as long as you live." The words only served to evoke more tears from everyone around, including Ning. The farewell talks lasted as long as it took for the spaceship to arrive. They all felt it land even though they couldn't see it because of the camouflage. Ning walked off from the group and introduced himself. "I am Ning Ruigong. I'm the one that sent you the message from ZSS Unity 3, he said. "Your message was well received," the captain of the ship spoke from inside the ship. "Please clear the memories of the ones beside you, and we can leave." "Not going to happen," Ning said and instantly teleported inside the ship. Many of them scrambled to find a way to defend themselves, but Ning was very fast. He could move, think, and perceive everything 5 times faster than everyone. So, he moved around the room, grabbing anyone's head he could and dominated them. Once he was done, he stopped and went back outside. "Drop the camo," he said, and the camouflage disappeared. The group saw the gigantic ship that was much bigger than the one Ning had. The door opened and readied for Ning to enter. Ning walked back into the group for one last goodbye. He wiped the tears off Janice's face and patted her head. He then looked to the rest of them and said, "Live a long life, and hopefully I will meet you all in your next one. Goodbye." He turned around and left them as his spirits flowed back to him. "Goodbye, teacher," Janice shouted as he left. "Goodbye, Ning. Goodbye, Safandra," the other followed. "And thank you for everything you've done for us," they all spoke in unison. Tears flowed down Ning's face as a smile appeared on it. Even Safandra was in tears at this point and couldn't help but sob into her hands as she sat on Ning's shoulder. Ning turned one last time to look at them and waved his hands before turning back and going into the ship. He didn't look at them after that and ordered the captain to take off. The ship started flying, and before anyone could think of anything, it flew off into space. Janice fell to her knees as she cried, and the rest of them were also crying with their tears refusing to stop. However, a while later, they understood that he was gone, and so they decided to leave as well. Their ships were by the side of the island, so Janice and Slime got onto one ship full of soldiers. Ori and Trevain got onto a giant fishing vessel that belonged to Trevain's new company. Tessa didn't need any ships as she could freely fly away using the wind as her support, and Amy ran away so fast that no one even saw when she left. They would meet each other from time to time, but they were mostly concerned with their own things. Janice practiced being the best princess she could be. Being the only child of the king, she knew she would have to become a queen one day. However, about 7 years later when she was 23, a giant empire from the north would push its borders and come attack the Darius kingdom. That would be the day the world learned the legend of the Flame Princess who could fight battalions on her own. The Flame Princess of the Darius kingdom was a strong force to slow down the empire's pushing, but not nearly strong enough. However, when aid came to the princess in the form of 3,000 strong beasts, the war was all but over. The young man that appeared next to the princess alone was a terror that not many would forget to the end of their lives. The millions of different attacks he used, each of which was strong enough to kill anything in their way, along with the many beasts he controlled was why the people started calling him the Devil of the Beasts. Together, the Flame Princess and the Devil not only destroyed the empire but also created an empire of their own where humans and beasts could live in peace. On the other side of the planet, Tessa would become the headmaster of the first bond school after the headmaster died of a heart attack. She would win the position after revealing the fact that she had a spirit with her. She would go on to be the headmaster for nearly 40 years before another person came to take her place. Trevain lived a slow life in Renater with his wife and 3 children, doing nothing but fishing all day long. He had bought back his business from the friends he had sold it to, and continued expanding it. He was now the biggest and best fishing business in the entirety of the Taming Hall Empire, and he was happy with that. Amy had become a member of the Summoning Circle, so she would slowly climb her way up to the top, and even become an executive in it. She would break records after records in the number of quests done by a single person, and none would ever come close to her. She would live a great life with her partner and even give birth to 2 daughters of her own. Ori, in order to keep her promise to Silver, would become a traveler that went around the world. At first, her travels were random and without rhyme or reason. However, once she realized the potential of the powers she had acquired, she started traveling to places with a lot of mountains and potential ore deposits. When she found a place with a lot of metals on the ground, she would start a mining company there. Soon, she became one of the richest people in the whole world and would continue to be so for a long time. Everyone's life was a unique experience, everyone's life was different, and their life barely intersected together. However, as if to fulfill their final promise to Ning, they did the best they could and lived a very long and happy life. Ning stood in the hull of the ship, watching the entire solar system fly past him. Nulwern was far behind now as they had been flying at impossible speeds for a few minutes now. Safandra sat on his shoulders and looked at her arms. "I feel weird," she said. "It's like I'm drowning or something." "It's probably because we are out of the system with spiritual energy in it," Ning said. He confirmed with the system and he was indeed correct. "So, can I not use my powers again?" Safandra thought and tried to pull on something. "Stop," Ning said. "You can use them, but if you do, you will end up like Amy was when she was little blue." "I'll be without consciousness?" she asked. "Well, I don't want that." "Don't worry," Ning said. "If you ever do end up that way, I have a way to restore you. Although, from what I can guess, it will take a long time." Ning walked away from the hull and arrived at the bridge of the ship. "Captain, what's our status?" Ning asked. The captain of the ship was a man named Jerbax. He was human, for the most part, but part of his physique included a furry little tail that constantly moved around. Aside from the captain, Ning had learned that there were about 10 more crew members and he had dominated all of them to do his bidding. The crew members were mostly human, but some of them were a bit different physiologically, whether it be missing organs or some extra organs. For now, they were unaffected by his will, doing whatever they thought was right. "FRS Icefall is approaching the heliopause of this system, Master. Once we are out, we can activate the space drive," the captain said. Ning nodded. "Don't jump until I've told you to," he said and left the bridge. Safandra flew a little behind him, looking at everything. Ning walked through the narrow hallway of the ship and looked at the various rooms here. Unlike the ship he had, which was a survey vessel, FRS Icefall was a research vessel. It was made in the ice planet Frimston, and was tasked with researching any given planet to understand it better. They were mainly tasked with finding planets that could be mined for their resources. Any lifeless planets were unhesitatingly stripped of any resources, while planets with life were thought of with more care. Ning saw many research equipment on the ship which he walked away from. Finally, he arrived at end of the ship and opened the door to the space drive. There was a man inside, but Ning had already dominated him, so he was ignored. Ning looked at the machine that was working in the center but ignored it to look at the capsules to the left. He picked out one of the capsules and looked at it. Inside the capsule was a silver rock that acted as if it was without weight. That was true as space stones were without mass and thus were without weight. Ning looked at the size of the one here. The space stone was large enough to barely fit in his closed fist. "This is way larger than the small speck of dust I saw before," Ning said. "How much space does this space stone contain?" 41,000 cubic kilometers. "Oh, only?" Ning asked. Granted he didn't have a good perception of how big a cubic kilometer was, it still felt weird to learn that such a big space stone was only so big. "Didn't a speck of dust end up being like 500 million something previously? Am I understanding something wrong?" Ning asked. "Oh, so this one can help me travel up to." Ning tried to do some mental arithmetics, but there were too many zeros to keep track of. 41 trillion kilometers? Ning asked. 4.32 light years. Huh? Ning thought as he looked at the stone inside the cylinder. That's not bad at all. What's not bad? Safandra asked curiously. She heard him talking to himself and knew he was speaking with his system, but she was curious too. Oh, Ning had to explain everything he knew about space stones to her from what he could remember. So this little silver stone holds this much space? Safandra asked. Ning went through the rest of the capsules and found that half of them had more stones, some which were larger, some which were smaller. The rest were empty. All, in the nearly 30 different capsules, there were about 100 to 150 light-years worth of space stones. That was not very much. Master, we are arriving at the heliopause, the captain spoke over the speakers. Let's go, Ning said and walked back into the bridge. He arrived just in time to see the boundary of the solar system where the heliosphere was kept in equilibrium by the interstellar wind. He felt slight turbulence as he crossed the boundary, but it was barely anything to the crew members who were used to it. Should I initiate the space drive, Master? The captain asked. Ning looked out. Where are we going exactly? He asked. Since we were here on a detour to pick you up, we will have to return to the Federation service station located in this cluster of the quadrant, so we can drop you off and go back to work, the captain said. Ning thought for a moment. No need, he said. Just go do your job as you want and don't even think that I'm here. He wanted to see how the research vessel worked exactly. Even then, we still have to restock, master, the captain said. Ning nodded. I see, do what you must then. Start the space drive. Engaging space drive. Everyone, get onto your seats, the captain ordered. Lieutenant Ziri, calculate the distance. Yes, Captain, a girl with pink skin spoke up. She started doing a few things on her screen to the left, and suddenly everyone could hear her voice. Calculating distance. You can teleport exactly 2.43 light-years in any direction. Please select the direction. The AI of the ship spoke up once the girl had started the calculation. Lieutenant Froxby, be ready to load up more space drives, the captain spoke over the channels. Aye, Captain, a voice came through the system. Ensign Grand, chose a location, the captain asked. Yes, Captain, the young man with pointy ears that sat at the front of the ship spoke. Ning looked around, quite fascinated at the fact that there were so many things one had to do before teleporting on this ship. If it was just him, he would have teleported without thinking much. Hey, I can't tell what they're saying, Safandra said from the side. You can't? Oh right, we're speaking a different language, Ning said. System, you got anything language skills for her? The system cannot give skills to anyone directly in this situation. She can either learn the language manually, or you can buy a skill to transmit every single thing you learn from listening over to her. Alright, buy it. Confirmed. Location set, Captain, the ensign said. Good, jump. Ooh, I understood that word. Did you do something? Safandra asked. Yes, Ning said. He watched from the window at the front as several strands of silver light started grabbing onto the ship, and when they were fully covered, he felt a slight bit of turbulence. They had traveled through space itself and arrived at a different location somewhere over 2 light-years away. Ning realized that if he were to turn around and look back at the planet Nulwern and somehow see it all again, he would be looking at one from over 2 years ago. Lieutenant Froxby? The captain asked. 3 seconds later, an answer came back. Space drive has been swapped, Captain. We're ready to jump again, the man in the space drive room spoke. Lieutenant Ziri, the captain spoke. Doing it, Captain, the woman said as she quickly pressed a few more buttons and the ship spoke up again. This time, the space drive had about 4.3 light-years worth of distance to go. That's the one I looked at, isn't it? Ning thought. After all the calculations and plotting were done, the ensign activated the space drive again, and the ship jumped once more, arriving at another part of the sky. Then, they did it 2 more times. In total, they traveled around 15 light-years of distance before stopping any more jumping. Plot a course to the closest Federation service station, the captain said. Closest service station is at Q4S3C26G5, Captain. Plotting course, the ensign spoke. Set autopilot, and calculate the time of arrival, the captain said. The lieutenant did the calculations and came up with an answer. Estimated time remaining is 122 years, Captain, the lieutenant said. Good, let's sleep for a few years, the captain said. Ning was a little confused at the captain's attitude at the length of time that was given to them. Surely they could just teleport again, right? Captain, why are we not using the space drive to arrive at the location already? Ning asked. We can't activate the drive more than 20 light-years of distance at a time, Master. Any more and it will overload. As such, we need to give it some time to cool off, the captain said. Oh, Ning said. Should I refresh it? Maybe I should let them sleep for a while. And what were those numbers you guys keep talking about? That Q4S3 something, Ning asked. Oh, that's the ID for any star or planet, the captain said. Q stands for quadrant, S for sector, C for cluster, G for group. In the case of the planet you were in just now, it was located in Quadrant 4, Sector 3, Cluster 23, Group 3. It was the 3rd planet in the 17th sun of the group, so the overall planet was identified as Q4S3C23G3-17C. Similarly, the Federation station we are going to is located in the same sector as this one, but in a different cluster. It is about 122 light-years away from here, the captain explained. Oh, Ning said. Go on then, go to sleep. Won't you be sleeping too, Master? The captain asked. Don't mind about me, I will go to sleep when I want to, Ning said. Yes, the captain said and left. Safandra made a curious face. What's that about quadrants and such? She asked. I'm not really sure. System, can you give me the information? He asked. Yes, a wave of information floated into Ning's mind and he slowly learned it. Oh, so that's it, he thought. What is it? Safandra asked. So, there are 4 quadrants in total, each quadrant has about 15 sectors, each covering an equal area of the quadrant on the galaxy which has an average radius of 5,000 light-years. They count from the back for some reason, so we are very far from the center of the galaxy, but are somewhere in the middle of the sector, Ning said. Oh, Safandra said. So, what's our destination? The service station? No, not the station, our destination. You have someplace in mind, right? She asked. Actually, I hadn't given it much thought as of yet. I was going to think about it once we were on the spaceship. In my mind, in the worst-case scenario, I was going to use the spaceship I have to make my way out of this galaxy, Ning said. But, you are right, I need to have some sort of destination, Ning said. System, what do I need to do? Depends on whether the host cares about his journey or not. My journey? What do you mean? Ning asked. Do you wish to visit the Milky Way galaxy or skip it? Didn't we already plan to skip the Milky Way galaxy? Ning asked. Since the galaxy was being influenced by a heavy time warp, he had decided to skip that galaxy and go to the next one where Kumiya was. Yes, but that was before you found out about the existence of space stones. Oh, what does that change exactly? Ning asked curiously. Safandra tried to listen to whatever conversation he was having with the system, but all she could do was hear his side of the conversation. But unfortunately, his words rarely gave insight onto what the system itself was saying. Space stones can be used not only for the space inside of it but for the power it gives to manipulate space itself. Does it? No, it does. Right, I just saw with the space drive, Ning said. The space drive was using space stones to manipulate the ship into teleporting through space. How does that help me exactly? Ning asked. The distance between this galaxy and the Milky Way is nearly 4 million light-years. That distance will take you forever to trek through the vast space. Wait, what the hell? 4 million light-years? Is that how far the Milky Way is from here? What about Kumiya? Ning asked. Another 2.5 million light-years away. Ning was devastated. Was that how far everything was normally? He hadn't realized. He had expected the galaxies to be closer to each other for some reason, however, listening to the number made him feel hopeless. Do we have any chance to make it back to Kumiya in any good amount of time? Ning asked. There is previously, you had a single choice regardless of if you wanted to visit the Milky Way galaxy or not. That was to gather enough energy to open a portal back to Kumiya. However, now that you know about space stones, you have 2 new choices aside from the last one. The first choice is that you gather as many space stones as you can so that you can teleport right across without having to ever enter the Milky Way galaxy. But that will take a lot of space stones, won't it? Ning asked. I will need about 1 million or 2 of the same sized space stones as we saw earlier, right? Not necessarily. The teleportation from space stones is done by squeezing the space inside of it to connect to another point in space. If the object you are using to travel in is smaller, then the space can be squeezed even thinner to reach farther. For example, if you alone were to use the space stone from earlier, you would have been able to travel up to 20 times further. Oh, so I could have gone over 300 light-years if it was just me doing it? Ning asked. Yes, and even further if you switch bodies to something that is smaller. Say I change bodies to the size of one of those spiritual pearls. How much distance do you think I could cover with a cubic centimeter of space stone? Ning asked. For the ship, the answer was about 234 billion kilometers. You can travel up to 117 trillion kilometers if you were about 2 centimeters in diameter, or in other words, 12 light-years. Holy! I should have done that in the first place, Ning spoke out loud. Wait, there's still time. However, before he impulsively took action, he stopped. There was more to the system's words that he had to listen to. Besides, what was he going to do after teleporting randomly without any destination? The way you just mentioned is quite good. If I had the stone from earlier, I could have teleported quite far away, Ning said. 2,164 light-years. Holy shit, that is far, Ning said to himself. Still, the distance is 4 million light-years, which means I will need one that is at least. How many times larger? 2,000 times larger. You will need a space stone with a volume of 323.47 cubic meters. Cubic meters. Ning visualized the size of the space stone he would be needing and nearly lost his mind. And that is just to reach the Milky Way galaxy. To cross it and then reach to Kumiya, I will need one that is about half that size again, right? He asked. Yes, Ning nodded. So, what's the next method? He asked. The second method is to take a shortcut through the multiverse. Ning's eyes shined. I'm intrigued, to say the least. Go on. As mentioned a long time ago, multiple universes are on their way to passing through the Milky Way galaxy. In total, there are 4. 2 of them are already conversing on the Milky Way galaxy and making the space around it very flimsy. Another one, however, is en route to getting very close but never crashing onto it. That universe will go right past the edge of this galaxy. So, if you were to use Space Stone to tear the fabric of the universe when it's very close and then enter it, you can ride that universe to the Milky Way galaxy and pop out when it is very close. Ning's eyes went wide. You can tear the walls of the universe using a Space Stone? He asked. Yes, but it requires a lot of space stones. It is only a viable situation currently because the universe is going to be very close. Ning thought for a moment. What about time? You said I had to take a ride in that universe, right? So I should spend some time there? And considering it will be passing through here, then the time here must be starting to flow slower soon too. Given how slow Earth's time was because of the galaxies being close to it, now Ning was starting to worry that this galaxy would also have its time slowed down, making it further impossible for him to get back to Kumiya fast enough. You do not need to worry about that. The universe you will be going to is one that died in its infancy and only has a single sun. A universe that died in its infancy? What does that mean exactly? Ning asked. System can't tell you everything, but in essence, there were complications when the universe was formed, and thus not much matter and space was created. As such, there is only a single solar system in the entire universe. Oh, such a place exists too, huh? Ning was quite surprised. So, that means that time will flow faster in this location since it is just a single sun, right? Yes. Between this galaxy and that universe, the time difference is approximately 1 to 194. So 2 days here is a year over there. That's not too slow as I thought, Ning said. What about the Milky Way galaxy and that universe? About 1 to 698,400. Ning's face went blank for a few seconds. Did you accidentally add a few zeros in there? That doesn't seem right, he said. The time difference between Milky Way galaxy and the Yomier galaxy is approximately 1 to 3,600. That's so much, Ning thought with absolute shock on his face. For context, the time difference between Milky Way and Andromeda, where Kumiya lies, is now 1 to 400. And the time difference between Yomier and Andromeda is 1 to 9 because of how small the Yomier galaxy is. Okay, that makes way more sense now that I have the context, Ning said and thought of the numbers again. So how many years passed in that other universe while a single day passes on Earth? 1,915 years approximately, and for Kumiya, it will be 1 to 1,746. So every 4 years and 285 days you spend there, a single day will pass in Kumiya. I see, Ning said. How many years will it pass in Kumiya while I make my way to Earth? Ning asked. You will have to stay in that universe for somewhere between 500,000 years and 700,000 years. That period is when the universe will pass through the Milky Way galaxy, and that amount of time will mean that approximately 400 years will have passed in Kumiya at the maximum. That's so much. How much time has passed already? Ning asked. You remained in Hyrix galaxy for over 20,000 years. While most of that time was spent in space, it was still a lot of time. As such, nearly 600 years have already passed in Kumiya. 600, huh? Ning felt a little sad when he heard that. He had tried so hard to get there as soon as he could, but still, such a long time had passed. Well, they are cultivators, so they should be fine, Ning thought to himself. With spirit transformation realm, they get up to 10,000 years of lifespan when I include their body cultivation. I just hope they don't forget me so easily by the time I get there. Ning wasn't as depressed by the information as he thought he would be. Right, even if you add 400 years to that, it's barely 1,000 years. They can spend that away cultivating, he said. Also, wait, how much time will have passed on Earth by the time I get there? A single year? Yes. Maybe less depending on when you exit the universe. I would have never imagined I would have to go on such an adventure, to be honest, Ning said. A universe that died at its infancy, huh? When he said that, a thought came to Ning. A memory of a time when the system had used a similar word to say the same thing. Wait, didn't you say that such a universe had a lot of space stones before? Can I get space stones from there? Ning asked. There are most likely space stones there, but the system suggests you to not count on them. Since space stones move in the direction with the most gravitational force near it, it is very much likely that the sun had swallowed up all the space stones. Ah, well, that's a shame. Still, I have some hope, Ning said. So, what exactly do I do to enter this universe? You said it was passing by right, so there must not be much of a window for me to jump in. All information regarding the timeline of the universe has been provided to the host. A stream of information entered Ning's mind and he learned something. Open, he said, and his star chart skill opened up to show a vast space with billions of stars. He was just looking at the Yomier galaxy, and along the top of the galaxy, his mind made a simple trajectory of where the universe would travel through. Ning's eyes narrowed when he learned of the time he had. As of today, the universe was already passing from the edge of Quadrant 2 into Quadrant 1, which was opposite to Quadrant 4. And every day Ning didn't get there, it got further and further away. Based on the time, Ning had about 1,000 years before it escaped the galaxy. If you want to reach there without using too many space stones, you have less time. What do you mean? Ning asked. The star chart zoomed until Ning saw nothing but darkness. That wasn't true entirely though, as there was a ring around the darkness made of very bright light. Ning was looking at an accretion disk of a black hole. Why am I looking at a black hole exactly? He asked. A small location right outside the black hole suddenly brightened as the system focused on it. There's a natural wormhole formed here that is regularly used by the people of this world to travel. If you enter this place, you will come out here. The vision zoomed back and moved nearly 3,000 light-years away to a location in the first quadrant, that just happened to be right next to the pathway of the universe. The location was a place where the universe would be the closest in 330 years. I see, Ning said. While I don't exactly need to do that since space stones seem so abundant even in just this ship, I do think it might be a good idea to go there. After all, I need to look into the black hole, don't I? Come on. I thought I was supposed to listen to what you were hearing. Why did I listen to nothing? What was that about a black hole? What are you talking about? Safandra shouted in frustration. Sitting there, listening to what was basically nonsense on her end was quite annoying to say the least. System, can she not hear our conversation? Ning asked. These conversations are happening in your mind, so she can't hear you. Do you want her to? Yes, Ning said. Understood. All right, you should be able to listen to our conversation from now on, but for now all you need to understand is that I found our next destination, Ning said to the spirit on his shoulders. What's the destination? She asked. Ning made the star chart visible to her and showed the wormhole that was next to the black hole. This is our destination for now. We need to get here within the next 1,000 years, he said. However, just then Ning realized something. Wait, won't the time slow down around the black hole? I don't have 1,000 years in total, do I? He asked. Around the black hole, time moves at 10 times slower speed, and up to 100 times slower at the distance where the wormhole lies. Ooh, that's the system. I can't tell if that's a male voice or a female one, Safandra said. That sounds like a male voice to me, Ning said. Sounds kind of feminine to me, Safandra said. So, anyway, we have to go there. That seems far away. Haha, come with me, I'll explain how close it actually is. Ning proceeded to tell her everything he learned from the system just now, as he walked the hallways of the ship. Whoa, another universe. Sounds fun, Safandra said. Ning arrived at the cryo room where all of the crewmates, including the captain, had gone into cryo sleep. Well, they're asleep. Guess we have nothing to do but wait around for over 100 years now, Ning said. Hey, are you seriously going to wait for 100 years? Are you not going to sleep? She asked. No, I have something I need to do that I haven't been able to do for over 3 different planets now, Ning said. Oh, what's that? Safandra asked. I need to absorb the radiation and grow stronger, he said. Ning returned to the bridge and sat next to the window, but the window simply wasn't large enough to let all the light in. He needed to find another way. System, I need to sit outside the ship. You got anything for me? He asked. The speed at which the ship was moving in made it impossible for him to just teleport out and sit down. You can use very powerful magnetic shoes. How about that, but in the form of a skill? So I can turn any part of my body magnetic, Ning said. You can buy that for 1.3 billion energy. Usage of the skill will require constant usage of energy as well. Buy, Ning said, and he was given the skill at once. Wait, that's it? You don't have to do anything else? Safandra asked. All Ning did was ask for something and the system gave it to him. Yeah, that's usually how it goes now, Ning said. But there used to be a time when I had to wait around for all energy to be gathered up, actually. It all changed once I killed Genesis and absorbed him in the system. If only I got one more of those, I wouldn't even have to go through the trouble of such endeavors. I bet you would still, though, Safandra said with a chuckle. No, not until I get back to Kumiya, Ning said. After that, I wonder what I would do after that. Well, I'll think of that at that time. Anyway, you should get into the spirit space. I will be spending the next many years on top of the ship, basking in the starlight, Ning said. Wait, I have to spend an entire century alone? Safandra asked. System, is the spirit space not time-stopped like the storage space? Ning asked. It can be, but it will cost you 100 times its original cost for that. The system wants the host to note that the time won't be stopped if the spirit is being healed. Yeah, do it, Ning said. In fact, turn all 4 of them into a time-stopped version of that. Understood. Once all 4 of his spirit space was turned into a timeless one, Safandra hesitatingly jumped into one of the open spots. Once she was gone, Ning looked all around him in the silence. When are they set to wake up? He asked. Unless the ship AI wakes them up for something critical, they should be asleep for the next 30 years. I thought they would sleep for longer, Ning said. Although, I guess it makes sense that they would want to use their space drive as soon as it is active again. Now that everything was seen, Ning teleported out of the ship to the top and immediately used the magnetic skill to grab himself to the surface. There was a slight distortion to the ship's course because of what he did, but the AI immediately fixed the course and the ship was back on track. His breathing skill kicked in and Ning started looking around in the empty space with nothing but darkness all around him. However, when he used his vision that required no light to see, everything was bright all of a sudden as if a million different fireflies had decided to light themselves suddenly. Ning looked to the far reaches of the galaxy where nebulae covered a significant part of the sky, then to another side where a star was much brighter than others. He could see a million stars from where he was, and all those probably had thousands of planets in them that held life. There were so many places he could go, but he had his mind set. He would always choose Kumiya over any of these planets. With the radiation absorption skill up to 17%, even when there was barely any light from the stars, Ning's body still improved quite a bit. With this, the next 30 years he was going to spend on top of the ship was more akin to spending about 250 years in the stars. It wasn't much, but it was something. Also, because he was moving so fast, in the next 30 years, he would go nearly 15 light-years away from where he had started. Which was a lot higher distance than the mere 4 light-years he had spent nearly 20,000 years flying through space last time. So, he would also be hit by more radiation in general because of the distance. As such, Ning was at least going to have his body improved by quite a significant amount. Ning was still being bombarded by the interstellar wind, but this time around, he didn't need to worry about trying to speed himself up every time he was slowed down over the course of the many years. Since he was attached to the ship, he could simply focus on other things such as looking at the beautiful stars or planning out his next set of moves. However, it didn't take long for Ning to be out of topics to think about. As such, over the course of the many days he remained up there, he slowly fell into the same lull he had learned to do so many years ago and fell asleep. Ning woke up some years later, unknown exactly how long had passed. He looked at the vast sky above him and realized that the patch of sky he had looked at before had changed. He couldn't help but be a bit confused. System, how many years have passed? He asked. 78 years and 9 months. Whoa, really? Ning was surprised. He hadn't expected to fall asleep for so long, but it made sense in a way. After all, he had learned to fall asleep for centuries when he was flying on his own. 78 years was nothing by comparison. How many light years have we traveled? He asked. The crewmates woke up twice to jump the ship another 40 light years forward. So, we're about 80 light years done with the 122 light years journey? Ning asked. Yes. That's farther than I expected to go while I was out here, but not bad. We only have, what? Less than 42 light years to travel. That should be fine. When did the crew last go into cryo sleep? Ning asked. About 19 years ago. Wake them up, Ning said. Ning teleported back into the cryo room and brought out Safandra. Did you forget to say something? She asked when she came out and looked curiously at her surrounding. It's been nearly 80 years since we last spoke, Ning told her. What? No way, Safandra said. You called me out the moment I went in there. Yes, Ning said. That's what the space is supposed to feel like. Given how safe the ship appears to be, I might start doing that again as well. Although, I have way too much energy and it feels quite scary to just pour myself into any random object. Just then, one by one, the crew members started opening their eyes. The girl with the pink skin, Lieutenant Ziri as she was called, woke up first and walked out. She was a little disoriented, but that was just everyone that walked out of the cryo chamber. So, she went around the room, helping others land on their feet and take a few breaths. Then, they went around helping each other. Before Ning knew it, all the 11 crew members of the ship were all awake. The captain checked the logs to see if anything had happened during the time, and to his surprise, found out that he had been woken up nearly a decade earlier than they had planned. Lieutenant Ziri, there seems to be a problem with the ship's AI. Can you take Lieutenant Hargill and go check? The captain asked. Aye, Captain, the lieutenants replied. Wait, there's no problem, Ning said. I woke you guys up. Why, Master? The captain gave a confused look. We're jumping again, Ning said. This time, we are going to go all the way to the service station. I don't think the space drive had cooled yet, Master, the captain said. Since you have such a freezing system, why don't you cool the space drive with that? Ning asked. The metal that makes the machine loses quite a bit of durability if we heat it and cool it rapidly. We do use the cooling system to just keep it from becoming super hot in the first place, the captain said. Well, I'm here so you can forget about said problems, Ning said. Go to your stations, we will be jumping non-stop. Yes, Master, the captain took the crew, except for Froxby, who went back to the room with the space drive along with Ning. A cylinder with a space stone was already in the machine, ready to jump in case of emergency. However, Ning could feel the slight heat coming from the machine still. System, fix it, Ning said. With a single command, the system not only immediately cooled the whole thing but also reverted the metal back to its original form so that they were still very durable. Lieutenant Froxby let the captain know of the changes, so when everyone was ready, the captain jumped once more. Ning felt the turbulence and understood they had teleported. Froxby moved again to replace the cylinders and they jumped once more. Within 4 jumps, Ning felt the heat in the room and was even a bit surprised that Froxby could handle it. However, he simply cooled the machine down and fixed it again before teleporting a few times more. By the time the 2 different sessions of teleportation were over, FRS Icefall had arrived at the Federation service station of Sector 3. The Federation service station hovered around a red giant that was over 1 billion kilometers wide. It was a massive piece of metal structure that looked like 3 cylindrical rods, rounded around a bigger rod at the center. There were metal antennas and whatnot coming out of the service station, and hundreds of ships flew in and out constantly. Ning stared from the window while the captain made some communications with the person in charge of handling research vehicles. Is that a sun? Safandra asked. She had never seen a red giant before. Your first time, huh? Ning asked. It's the second time for me. That star will die in a relatively short time and burst open. Really? Won't these people die? She asked. Oh, when I say relatively, I mean relative to how long it's been alive. The star must have formed many billion years ago, and by comparison, it will die in a few million years. Oh, so they have plenty of time, Safandra said. Still, it is so red. I wonder why they chose this place, Ning thought. From what he could tell, everything in this science-enhanced world needed a single thing to survive. Water. Water was not only important because it was what kept the humans alive, but also because they needed water for oxygen, which was necessary to keep living, and hydrogen, which was what fueled everything around here. Since they were capable of nuclear fusion, the Federation gained their energy by fusing hydrogen to create helium and release a bunch of energy. Now, while hydrogen was plenty available in the galaxy as it was the building block of the universe, oxygen on the other hand was not as readily available. and the easiest way to get that was to simply split water into hydrogen and oxygen. Ning opened his star chart for a second and saw a planet that was currently on the other side of the sun but would come around in at least 50 more years. Oh, that makes sense, Ning said when he saw that the planet was made up of water for the most part with a huge surface of it simply frozen. There's plenty amount of water here, so I can see why they live here, Ning said. I would still hate all this redness, Safandra said. Suddenly, the window through which Ning was looking outside turned into a screen and a face appeared on it. It was a blue-haired man with multiple folds of skin on his forehead. Other than that, he looked normal. Captain, please verify yourself, the man said. Authority 0319 SG33. Captain Jerbax of FRS Icefall, requesting to land, the captain spoke to the system. Authority verified. Welcome back, Captain. Please head to the 76th hangar on the second rim, the blue-haired man said. The FRS Icefall flew to the second rim of the station and flew in through a door that was opened just for them. System. Looks like there might be verifications and stuff. Make sure to fake something for me and give me the information you fake, Ning said. Understood. A new identity flowed into Ning and he couldn't help but immediately regret giving the system full authority on what to make of his identity. According to the system, Ning was born on one of the Federation planets called Gyronix, which lies on Quadrant 3, Sector 5. Apparently, he was a really rich person on that planet, fated to marry the most beautiful girl, but on a dare, he bet away his money, house, and the seal of marriage that forced the girl to marry him. Once he was poor, Ning was forced to join the Federation to make ends meet and were somehow able to become an ensign to enter one of the ships to go on a survey. While on the survey, they hit a bunch of asteroids due to a malfunction on the ship's light emission system that was used to check on things that the ship was headed towards. Once crashed, the ship fell to Nulwern, and Ning had only managed to survive because he was in one of the cryo chambers. Also, his name was now Rat Trap Barnacles. Why the hell would you give me such a bad name like Rat Trap Barnacles? Are you making fun of me? Ning asked. Wait, that's what you're called? Ha ha ha. Safandra started laughing on her own. That was not the system's intention. The system only wished to provide what the host asked while using the least bit of energy. What? How does naming me a rat trap save energy? Ning asked. The system merely changed a person's biosignature in the database to replace it with yours. As such, not much energy was used. What? A person named Rat Trap exists? Ning asked. Existed. He was one of the people that died when ZSS Unity 3 crashed in Nulwern. Oh, Ning's emotions softened when he realized he was disrespecting a dead man. My bad then. I guess I'll use his name then. Still, his story is quite sad. To think he lost so much on a single drinking game. The ship slowly landed inside the enormous hangar with nobody inside and the shutter for that hangar started shutting down. Then the ship's own hangar opened up, and one by one, the crewmates started getting off. Ning followed them and got off as well. A dwarf-like man with a thick beard came running up to them with a glowing piece of item in his hand. He quickly pointed it towards the 12 of them and scanned every one of them. All are fine. Welcome back, the dwarf said and turned around. Follow me. The group started walking, and Ning followed them. The hangar was truly large, so it took quite some time before they reached the other side of the hangar, which then opened up to reveal a giant circular tube. The small rim that looked like a cylinder was actually a massive piece of living space that was multiple kilometers wide and could house millions of people inside of it. Ning was truly surprised by just how big the place was. Ning looked around the massive station, fully made out of metal. He had to wonder just how many planets they likely had to mine to get this much metal. Well, there are so many planets out there anyway, Ning thought. As he looked, his eyes slowly looked upwards, and through one of the many glass ceilings that were laid out, he saw something that surprised him quite a bit. Wait, we're walking sideways on the cylinder? He asked. When he had just looked up, he saw the vertical rod that joined the 3 circular metal tubes. Oh, of course. Is this your first time in a service station, young boy? The dwarf asked. I'm afraid it is, Ning said and continued looking when he realized something. Wait, there's no artificial gravity here, is it? The station must be spinning then, to give us an illusion of gravity. Yes, the dwarf said. Well, you know how expensive artificial gravity devices can get. They can barely afford it for the ships. Imagine having to add it to the entire station. That would be a lot of waste when we can just spin in. Ning nodded. They were then taken to an office where the captain had to go through some formal reporting on what they had done. Ning, being the only survivor of the ZSS Unity 3, had to give his side of the explanation. Fortunately, he knew what he had to say, and so they were dismissed after the report. Ning walked out of the room and made his way away from the people to do his own thing. As he walked, he looked at the clothing of the people that walked past him, all of whom seemed to be a member of the Federation, basing it on the badge they were wearing. "You should change your clothes," Safandra said. "I should," Ning said. "I should look for a clothing store or something." "Can't you just create some?" she asked. "I like buying clothes. Helps me understand the culture around here when I go around, buying things. Also, I haven't eaten in a while. I should do that too," Ning said. As he walked along the pathway, he found a lifting platform that was taking people up through the ceiling to the main station at the center. "Right. Where is everything exactly?" "System. Can you give me a simple map?" he asked. "Understood." Ning looked at the map of the station and realized a few things. The whole station had 3 rings, each of which was attached to the main station at the center. The rings were each massive, with an inner radius of about a kilometer. They were all connected with multiple metal arms to the center that was each about 15 kilometers long, making it a long journey to get to the center. What surprised Ning most about this place was that there were people living at this station. Not just staying for a while, but actually living here. They had made their home here, families that lived for generations. The 2 rings on top and bottom were separated as residential areas. This was where the people lived. The middle ring was reserved for the Federation business, which was where he currently was. There were many hangars along the side of the ring where the many ships were kept at. The main station at the center was reserved for something else as well. This was where the food was grown and was also the location where all the main machinery was. This was where the energy for the entire station was generated. "Well, for now, let's get on that platform. It should take us to the central hub which we can use to travel to either of the residential rings," Ning said. While the platforms were down, he got onto it. There were places there where he was supposed to strap himself, so Ning did as told. Once he was strapped in, the platform moved up. At first, it was quite slow like a normal lift, but as seconds passed, it picked up speed and ended up going so fast that in just 2 minutes, Ning had crossed the 15 kilometers long distance. Phew! What the hell was that? So fast, he said to himself. The platform had flipped somewhere along the way and now, Ning should have been somewhere where the centrifugal force wasn't keeping him. However, since there was artificial gravity in this place, Ning was forced to walk. "Oh hey, they have a moving walkway here. Well, the hub is some 30 kilometers long, so this will be good," he said and got on one of them that went in some direction. There were markings telling him where he was going, and he knew which ring he was moving towards, but since they were both the same, he just kept going. There were people around him that looked at him curiously for his clothes. It wasn't until a little longer than Ning realized that they weren't simply staring because his clothes came from a different culture, but because he was wearing a cloth that was clearly torn at places and completely bleached after having spent so much time out in interstellar space. Ning saw the sun start to come up from one of the sides and the redness entered his vision. Fortunately, not even a minute later, some panels appeared on their own to close off that section of the walkway. Still, they needed the sun to give light to the plants that were growing in the hub. A few minutes later, Ning finally arrived at the end of the hub where he got into another platform to go towards the residential section. The platform once again moved slowly before ramping up in speed, and in another 2 minutes, Ning arrived on the ring where he got off. He looked around at the people there and instantly knew what he had to first do. Right, where is the commercial section? I need to find some clothes for myself. Ning went into a shop that sold clothing accessories. There were a few people that were also shopping there, but surprisingly, there were no shopkeepers. Actually, when Ning did look around, there were no clothes either. Instead, everyone was simply standing in front of a mirror, looking at themselves, and the clothes were being overlaid on their image to show what they looked like. Ning approached one of the empty mirrors and stood in front of it. Suddenly, a blue light was fired off from behind the mirror. Ning's perception suddenly sped up to see if he was in some sort of danger. However, when he realized it was just scanning him, his perception returned to normal speed and he continued on. "Welcome, Rat Trap Barnacles," the program inside the mirror spoke. Ning panicked a little, thinking people had heard his horrible name, but sighed in relief when he realized he was the only one who could hear it. "What would you like to look for?" the program asked as various different categories appeared. Shirts, pants, jackets, shoes, shorts, and various other categories were shown, and Ning looked at the t-shirt section first. Numerous t-shirts of numerous designs were shown on the mirror, and one by one they started appearing on Ning himself. His torn clothes changed to new, fantastic-looking ones as Ning checked himself out in the mirror. The white shirt with a cool triangular design at the center was quite amazing to look at, however, it was way too white for him. Next, he said, and the shirt shifted. This time he was in a red t-shirt that was quite plain by design but looked not bad. No, too much red, Safandra said from the side. You look good in blue. Get that one. Ning pointed to the t-shirt he was about to pick and it changed itself. Whoa, this technology is quite amazing, he said. Is it? Safandra asked. I thought the ship that flew through the galaxy would be something you call amazing, not this. Well, I mean, yeah, he said. There was no retort to that. The shirts filtered through and he ended up on a blue shirt that was of a lighter shade with a design in the center, the reference of which he could not understand. He then moved on to some pants and bought one of them too. After buying a pair of shoes, Ning stopped. Wait, how'd I pay? Ning looked around the place. Is that electronic too? Are you only going to buy one of each? What if they tear up? Safandra asked. Well, I'll just ask the system to fix it or make me a new one, Ning said. Did you forget that I came here only to see how it all worked in this place? All right, she said. Well, you should pay so we can leave. Speaking of which, how do you pay? Ning was about to ask the system when the program itself spoke on its own. Would you like to buy these items? It asked. Yes, Ning said. Voice signature, verified. 920 credits have been used from your account. Your items have been successfully bought and are being brought out. Thank you for using our store. Oh, poor old Rat Trap had some money with him it seems. Credits huh? I wonder how many credits I have in total, Ning said. 1288. Huh? Ning was surprised when he heard that. Are you saying I just bought something that was half of the young man's savings? After losing all his money, Rat Trap Barnacles got into more debt to bring himself up, and as a result, had to keep paying interest for everything he earns. So, he doesn't have many credits remaining after every survey run. Ah, I see, Ning said. Well, I guess we're done here. Let's go find a restaurant so we can eat something. Ning walked out of the store and went out to find a place where he could eat food. There were a few restaurants around the residential areas, but not as many as he would have thought there would be. He walked in his new blue t-shirt, pant, and shoes, and entered a relatively low-level restaurant. He entered the restaurant and was once again surprised to see how human-less this whole place was. With the different machines and programs doing everything, human labor was just no longer required. Does that mean they're now free of hunger and poverty since no one needs to work? Ning wondered. That would certainly be a great utopia to live in. A small machine flew next to Ning and showed a hologram with a menu. It was an interactive menu that showed not just what was being served, but also what it was going to taste like. Ah, this definitely, and, ooh, get that potato one. That looks good, Safandra said. No, that's too expensive. Why the hell are potatoes expensive? Ning wondered and went back to looking for something that would bring the entire cost to below 1,000 credits if possible. One by one, the food started being served to him and he ate it all. To his delight, it was all very, very tasty. The 3 dishes he ordered were all perfect in every aspect as if a machine had made it instead of a person, which was most likely the case. Ning finished the 3 dishes and called the robot back to pay, but it seemed he had somehow paid for the food the moment he had ordered them. Oh, so I can just leave huh? I should have known that earlier, Ning thought and left the area. Now that he had new clothes and eaten something, he wanted to go rest. He had slept for 78 years, but that was a little weird, and he wanted proper rest, on a soft bed and all. So, he looked up on the map that the system had provided and found himself a hotel. I see a lot of fun things to do, but let's go sleep now. How many rooms would you like? A robot spoke to Ning. A single one, Ning replied. Please choose the size and facilities, the robot said as the screen showed a list of rooms with different facilities. Ning chose one that had quite a bit of facility, but when he did, he realized that he didn't have enough credits. This must be a luxurious hotel if a single room for a night costs 500 credits, Ning said. I'm short 300 credits. System, add 5,000 credits to the account. Done. Great, Ning said and pressed buy. Not enough credits, The robot spoke and the screen flashed red. Ning's eyes narrowed a little in confusion. Huh? I just put 5,000. System, did you fail? Ning asked. The system did as you asked. Then why does it say I failed? Did it not update? Ning checked the screen to see how many credits he had, and to his surprise, he only had about 300 credits. Wait, what's going on? Whoa, I thought your system can do anything. Did it actually fail? Safandra asked. No way, Ning said. System? Rat Trap Barnacles had a lot of debt, so any credits added onto his account loses over 98% to the debt collectors. What the fuck? Ning cried out loud. Alright, then. How much in debt is he? Rat Trap Barnacles has a total remaining debt of 5,112,425 credits. Yeah, I'm not paying his debt, Ning said. System, add my own information to the Federation and give me 100,000 credits. Done. Ning looked at the robot in front of him and said, rescan. The robot did as asked, and Ning's updated information was shown with a full 100,000 credits available to use. He quickly paid for it and then went to his room, which lay a few floors below. Because of how the rings were set up, with the centrifugal force spinning outwards, they were able to turn the circular rings into a multi-layered location for the residential areas, as not much space was required for them when compared to something like the hangars where the spaceships were kept. Ning went to his room, had unlimited food and water, a very comforting bed, a massive TV to watch various things in, and a very advanced bathroom. The room was also on the lowest floor, which meant that the panels at the bottom could be opened up to reveal a thick glass from where the outside space could be viewed. Ning turned on the TV and let Safandra watch it while he went to take a bath. Safandra sat there, watching the TV, looking at some sports that a group of people played. Ning came out after a long shower and went to sleep while he let Safandra watch the TV however much as she liked. Safandra, who had never watched anything for entertainment, watched the TV all night long. Ning woke up the next morning and, after eating his free breakfast, left to explore the rest of the residential area. He spent a week in the area, going to various places, enjoying the customs, and understanding how the society functioned in a place that was so advanced that no one had to do anything. Turned out that people simply didn't work and spent their time simply entertaining themselves. The entertainment, as it turned out, was something that surprised Ning quite a lot. The people in this station all spent most of their time exploring new worlds, new quests, and new adventures, all in a virtual world created by the Federation. They spent their days playing games in a virtual world. Erg. I want to play that game, Ning said. It sounds so fun, but do I have the time? You need a space stone, right? If you get that, you have nothing to worry about, Safandra said. Yeah, but where is it? Ning asked. System, can you tell me where they keep the space stones? The system can only tell you the closest direction where the space stones are. The closest one is about 16 kilometers away in that direction. The system pointed towards the hub and Ning understood where he had to go. He teleported without any warning and Safandra teleported with him even though he hadn't touched her. That was simply how it was for her. Ning arrived in an empty location, completely invisible to not just the naked eyes, but also anything that could scan him. He didn't want to trip any alarms, so the system worked so that nothing could sense him. Where now? Ning asked. 200 meters in that direction. Ning turned and saw a massive wall, beyond which he couldn't find a way to go. Is there no door? Ning asked. Since he couldn't see any visible doors, he teleported once again. When he arrived on the other side, Ning instantly saw many humans working there. However, since they couldn't see him, he was fine. Ning then looked around and was shocked at what he was looking at. There were hundreds of thousands of cylinders with space stones in them that were being kept all around. Ning walked around, looking at them, and realized that they were being sorted by volume. So, it was quite easy for him to find one with the biggest volume. The biggest one he saw was quite disappointingly not very big. In terms of volume, the solid volume of the stone was around 300 cubic centimeters, which would let him alone travel around 3,600 light-years away. Well, I can just use two, I guess, Ning said. He placed his hands on the cylinder and stored it in his storage space. Only. Nothing happened. Huh? Why isn't it working? Ning asked. The space in the space stone is larger than the space in your storage, so you cannot store it. What? Tisk. So I can only use it then, huh? Ning asked. He thought for a moment about what he could do in this scenario. Well, it's not going anywhere, So I guess I can come back later and do it then. Ning returned to his room and lay in his bed as he thought of what to do next. There were over 250 years before he needed to arrive next to the black hole. That was plenty of time considering just how many space stones there were for him to simply take with him. Should I play the game? It sounds like a long game to be honest, Ning thought. Why do you want to go with the research vessel anyway? Safandra asked. Just to see how they work and stuff, Ning said. When are they leaving? Safandra asked. System? Ning asked. FRS Icefall will leave in a week, however, there is another one ready to leave right now to a place about 40 light-years away. Oh, let's just go in that then. We should be able to get back rather quickly since it is so close, Ning said. Without any more thought, Ning teleported onto the ship that was leaving and quickly dominated the minds of all 15 people that were there. The ship was called GRS Ultra 2. It was a research ship whose captain was a woman named Graina, who surprisingly had a face full of hair. Not just her face, but her arm and neck also showed quite a bit of hair. It was like she was a monkey that didn't fully evolve. However, she didn't have a tail at all. The other crewmates were similarly unique, with some having horns, some having multiple eyes, some having weird skin color, and some even having armor-like protrusions on their skin. Where are we going, Captain? Ning asked as the ship slowly got out of the hangar. We're going to JMS Yilka, Master, Graina said. MS? Ning gave a confused look. Is that a mining ship? Yes, Master, she said. We've received a message that that ship is facing some sort of problems with their readings. We need to go check what is happening. They can't solve it themselves. Ning asked. They can for normal problems, but not this one, which is why the research team is going specifically, the captain said. I see, Ning said. Everyone get ready. We will jump 20 years and sleep the rest of the way through, the captain said. Actually, no, Ning said. We'll jump the entire 40 light-years distance. I can fix the heating problem. Ning said so and walked to the room at the back where the space drive was kept. As soon as he reached there, the captain spoke through the system. We're ready, Captain, she said. Good, jump. Ning ordered. The ship was instantly covered in silver light from the front to the back, and in the next second, Ning felt the slight turbulence that came with teleporting. The man in the room quickly changed the cylinders in the space drive and once again they teleported away. Ning stayed there waiting until they teleported close to 20 light-years. Then, he asked the system to revert the machine back to how it was. Then again, they teleported over 40 light-years away to arrive at a location where the mining ship was. Ning left the room and arrived at the bridge where he looked outside the spaceship. The ship moved quickly through space, moving towards the mining ship that was about 20 minutes away at its current speed. The ship was inside a glowing nebula of blue and yellow, and it slowly made its way toward a star in the distance that was slowly getting brighter and brighter by the minute. As they proceeded, Ning noticed something black flying in front of the star that blocked it for a couple of seconds. As they got closer, Ning realized that he was looking at the planet from the side and could barely see a sliver of what was being lit up by the star. Oh, that's the mining ship? Safandra asked when she saw a ship floating in space above the planet. It was but a speck when compared to the entire planet. Still, when they got close, Ning couldn't help but be shocked at just how massive the ship was. That only made him more surprised at how large the planet itself was. Captain, I'm getting some illogical readings, one of the lieutenants spoke suddenly. What's going on? The captain asked. Just then, the screen on the ship lit up as someone was trying to communicate with them. Pull up the communication, the captain said. BZZZ, Cap, BZZZZ, this, BZZZ, pull, BZZZZ, send, BZZZ, side, BZZZZ. The man on the screen spoke something, but the connection wasn't clear at all. Clear up the message, the captain ordered. I can't, Captain. The message is being affected before it even gets to us, the lieutenant said. Ning looked around and saw that things were getting serious. System, clear up the message. Yes, suddenly, the man on the screen reappeared once again. Only, this time he was clear, and nothing was broken or missing. This is the captain of JMS Yilka. This planet in front of us has an incredibly strong magnetic pull, so you will need to put on your anti-magnetic shields and send the ship going sideways before falling into orbit. You will not be able to park otherwise. Oh, Lieutenant, pull up the anti-magnetic shields, the captain ordered. The lieutenant did as ordered and a bright green shield appeared all around them as the shield even covered what was outside. However, the screen still showed the outer regions through a camera. Ning watched the ship slowly descend sideways on the planet and slowly started circling it multiple times before they found an orbit to move on. Once that happened, they slowly switched the orbit until it lined up with the mining ship, and after an hour, they finally reached the mining vessel. The mining ship was over 500 times larger than the research vessel, so it completely swallowed up the research ship. The group disembarked and the captain of them met up with the captain of the mining vessel. "You arrived quite quickly, Captain," the other captain said. "Of course, it looked like an emergency," the captain said. She and the others followed the mining team to see what was wrong while Ning slowly followed them from behind as he looked around at the many ships that were in the hangar. "What seems to be the problem, Captain?" Graina asked. "I'm not sure myself, Captain," the mining vessel's captain said. "A few weeks ago, we suddenly started seeing weird numbers on our depth perception equipment. We think that it was caused by the magnetic fluctuations of the planet down below, but we cannot be sure as our anti-magnetic shields were active the entire time," the captain said. Do you not have spare equipment?" Graina asked. "We do," the captain said. "But without any idea on why we suddenly lost the equipment, we cannot swap it out. We are currently stable in orbit, but if we were to try and switch it up without our depth readings, we might end up in a catastrophic disaster. Especially in a planet like this with a very strong magnetic field," the captain said. Graina looked out onto the planet. "I hear this planet is about 88% metal, huh? No wonder it has so much magnetic activity." She turned around to the captain. "Worry not, Captain. We will figure out why your equipment was damaged very soon. Our engineers will try and see if they can fix your faulty equipment. In the meanwhile, we will go down to the planet and get some readings to see if it is the cause," the captain said. "Thank you, Captain," the captain said. Ning watched from behind, looking at how the Federation worked with each other, and he had to admit they were quite professional. "So they mine metal from this planet, huh? I wonder how that works," Ning thought. "Did they mine from up here? Or did they send ships to get the people to work down there?" 3 of the people split from the group and went on to check the equipment, while the rest returned to the ship. Ning returned back to the ship which escaped the mining vessel and went down to the planet the long way round. The anti-magnetic shields that protected them by creating a magnetic force of their own made it hard for them to penetrate into the planet, but gravity did the job anyways and pulled them in. The ship landed on a rocky, metallic surface and the captain gave the order. "Everyone that was born on a planet with a gravity acceleration of fewer than 14 meters per squared second will remain on the ship," she said. "Everyone else, wear your spacesuits. This will be a tough mission." The magnetic field alone was so strong, but the gravity on top of that on a planet with mostly metal would also be incredible. Not to mention, the winds would also be dangerous, and being this far from the sun, the planet was bound to be cold. The crewmates wore some very tough spacesuits, but Ning didn't need to worry about that. When the door opened, one by one, they all walked out of the ship and then out of the anti-magnetic field. Ning didn't wear any suits and walked on his own. He walked out of the anti-magnetic field and suddenly felt the intense gravity of the planet. However, he couldn't give mind to it at all as he heard something that he hadn't expected to hear at all. The system suddenly spoke. "All conditions have been fulfilled. Congratulations. You have now unlocked magnetic energy. You can now absorb magnetic energy." Ning's eyes slowly brightened as a smile appeared on his face. "I unlocked another energy? Magnetic energy at that? What was the requirement I just fulfilled?" Ning asked. "You experienced a magnetic pull on your body that had over 1 trillion energy." "Okay," Ning said. "Ooh, congrats. Looks like something good just happened," Safandra said. "Yes, kinda," Ning said through the harsh ionic winds that threatened to tear the skin off his face. But his body was just too strong for it to do that. "If the magnetic pull here is that strong, then I should have already absorbed quite a lot, right?" Ning asked. Yes, double my energy cap then," he said. "Your energy cap has doubled from 10.24 billion to 20.48 billion. What's happening?" Safandra asked with a confused look on her face. She wanted to know what was going on, but Ning was too busy with his own task. "Double it again," he said. "Your energy cap has doubled from 20.48 billion to 40.96 billion. "Yes, this just keeps getting better," Ning said. He started laughing as he waited for the system to absorb more of the magnetic energy from the planet now that he had more space for it. Once he realized he had enough energy, Ning spoke once again. Double it, he said. Your energy cap has doubled from 40.96 billion to 81.92 billion. Congratulations, you have bought all magnetic energy cap increments. As a reward, the system has awarded the host with toggle low-level magnetic damage ignorance. You now have the ability to ignore 15% of magnetic damage your body could suffer. You can improve this skill in the shop. Magnetic energy doesn't sound like it will affect me much unless I'm in a body that is very easily attracted to magnets, so I should be fine with delaying it for now, Ning said. Hey, tell me what just happened? Safandra asked. Oh, right, he finally got around to explaining to her what he had done. Oh, so you can now absorb energy about 8 times faster? That's great. Well, it usually is, but maybe not now, he said. It takes a considerable amount of energy for me to absorb 80 billion of it. I do have one new avenue of collecting energy, but the place I'm going to be at, there's no magnetic energy there for me to absorb. If I do start waiting there isn't much energy I can collect, Ning said. Is it absolutely necessary that you collect energy? Safandra asked. Well, it's always better to have more energy, but I don't know in this scenario, Ning said. I would say yes if I had to open portals, but now I have space stone, so. System, is there an energy requirement for the next energy unlock? Ning asked. Yes. You will need to spend 1 quintillion energy to unlock the next energy. Ning's face frowned for a second. Don't I have that already? He thought. Status? Status name. Ning Ruigong Energy, 55.6 quintillion. Separated energy heat energy, 31.34 trillion sound energy, 511 billion. Kinetic energy, 660 billion electrical energy, 920 billion. Magnetic energy, 66 billion chi energy, 0 ether energy, 0. Mana energy, 0 magicules energy, 0 willpower energy, 0. Spiritual energy, 0 life force energy, 0 aura energy, 0. Essence energy, 0 chakra energy, 0 skill. See? I do have a lot of energy still. Let's just buy the next energy too, Ning said. There are more than just energy requirements for the next energy unlock. Do you still wish to spend the energy? There's more? Can I know? Ning asked. No, thought so, Ning snickered a bit. I still have to spend it in the end, right? Yes. Ning thought for a moment and wondered if there would ever be any situation where 1 quintillion energy would be too much for him by any chance. Wait, am I not going to spend hundreds of thousands of years in that other universe? I should be able to afford that much energy when the time comes, he thought. If I do ever end up fulfilling all the requirements, then I shall unlock it. Ning stopped thinking about the system for now and looked around him. The planet he stood on was uneven, with harsh winds that glittered in the sunlight. The winds eroded the ground, and the eroded winds eroded more ground in different locations. The surface was multicolored as the different metals made it seem like they were different colors. Ning looked carefully and saw that there were markings on the ground from when ships perhaps landed on the surface here. He then looked at the massive hole where the captain and the rest of the crewmates were and walked up to them. The hole they were on was one of the many holes on the ground that had been excavated by the mining team. It was massive and just went to show how much of the surface had been mined. He walked up to the group and saw the different numbers and graphs that were visible on their equipment. Ning waited for a while for them to gather up their readings and watched them work. Once they were done, the group returned back to their ship and flew back. Flying back was somehow easy for them as they simply made it so that the polarities of their anti-magnetic shield and the planet's magnetic polarity matched, and it simply tossed them away when they started the engine. Using the force, they navigated the orbit once more before safely arriving at the mining station a while later. The ship landed inside the mining vessel, and the group left the ship to go see the mining ship's captain. The 3 engineers that had left the ship had also finished their work and met up with the captain. Captain, we will need whatever geological data the ship has gathered since it's come here, Graina said. Of course, Captain, the captain said. Graina and the rest started comparing the data they had gathered and analyzed what was going on. Did you find what was wrong with the equipment? She asked one of her engineers. It seemed to have been hit by an electromagnetic pulse, one engineer said. What? How could it have been hit by an electromagnetic pulse when it was inside the anti-magnetic shield? The captain asked. That clearly didn't make sense. She started looking at the different readings and the engineers helped her. Ning watched from behind, looking at the research team at work. I can't understand half of what they're talking about, Safandra said as she sat next to his ears. Well, I barely understand it as well, so I can't blame you, Ning said and watched. Captain, look, one of the researchers pointed at something. At the same day the depth perception reader was taken out, the planet had reversed its polarity. Could that have been the trigger behind the electromagnetic pulse? The captain quickly checked the information and was excited for a bit that she found the answer. However, she couldn't help but shake her head. The polarity reverse was too slow to have caused this. The anti-magnetic field would have reversed polarity along with it and the equipment would have never been damaged, the captain said. The group was back in a slump and they started going through the hundreds of different data that none of their programs could, unfortunately, help them with. They searched for more information, but Ning had already found the answer thanks to the system. He wondered if he should help, but decided to wait since there was no hurry. After a few minutes, one of the engineers noticed something. Captain, look, the ship was orbiting around the north pole of the planet when its polarity shifted to the south, the engineer said. Huh? Yeah, but that's still too slow. As I said, it would not have affected the ship, the captain said. Yes, but what if there was a solar wind that struck the planet right at that time? If its polarity didn't match the anti-magnetic shields, we could have been hit by a burst of electromagnetic pulse generated in that instance. The captain's face got thoughtful as she considered the possibility. Suddenly, her eyes brightened and she started looking through the various data. Here it is. Reports of solar activity had been seen, but they dismissed it since solar winds cannot possibly harm a ship, she said. However, due to unfortunate timing, while being on top of a magnetic pole, they were hit by the charged particles, and the equipment was damaged. Yes, that makes sense, the other engineer nodded. Look into other possibilities, but we might have found the cause, she said and started searching for any evidence that would disprove this theory. However, Ning knew that there would be none as the captain and her crewmates had hit the nail on the head. He waited for them to figure out that there was nothing else that could have gone wrong, and returned to the ship while they went to inform the captain of the problem. Since this was an isolated event, and the chances of it happening were astronomically small, they easily replaced the equipment and let the captain know there was nothing to fear. As long as the engineers on the ship kept track of solar activity during the polarity shifting period, they would be fine. After finishing all of that, the ship flew off from the mining station and the group flew back towards the service station. Ning went back to the room with the space drive and helped them carry on with multiple jumps again. Once they were close to the station, Ning had no choice but to wait half an hour before they arrived back. He walked up to the bridge and waited. Captain, do you have any family members? He asked. No, Master, she said. Most of us Federation members that go on a voyage are chosen from those that won't be missed greatly, so usually we are ones that don't have a family. What about those that do have a family? Ning asked. Those end up remaining in a single place to work so that they can visit their families, the captain said. I see, you do have to be away for years, huh? What about friends? Do you not have those either? Ning asked. I do, the captain said. But most of my friends are back home at the center of the galaxy where time runs quite slowly. So, even if I spend many years here, most of which is spent sleeping in a cryo chamber, they will still remain the same age as me by the time I return. Which we are allowed to after about 20 years of service as per the time back home. Oh, not bad. How many years do you have left? Ning asked. About 10 more years, the captain said. Or if we're talking outer space, about 900 more years. I see, Ning said. They spend quite a lot, huh? Safandra said. They spend it asleep most of the time, so they don't feel the time moving, Ning said. The ship arrived back at the station, and Ning teleported back into the room that he had bought for himself. To his surprise, a whole day had already passed. We only spent half a day near that planet though. Was the time difference that bad? Ning wondered. Ning quickly forgot about it and started preparing to go play the games that everyone seemed to love so much. Let's go buy whatever it is that is needed, he said and walked out of the room to go to a store. He apparently had to buy a human-sized capsule to play the game and it came with a cryo-freezing ability where everything but your mind was active. I wonder how that works, Ning thought. He looked at the price of the capsule at around 3,000 credits and was quite surprised at how expensive it was. Still, he was drowning in credits, so he thought not much of it and bought it. The capsule was delivered to Ning's hotel room through a robot and was easily set up once the power cord was attached to the socket. The capsule, which was made up of entirely metal and glass on the outside, had a padded inside that looked very comfortable to sleep in. Ning was about to step inside when Safandra spoke. Wait, don't go in just yet. What about me? She asked. I was just going to check, Ning said. Right, system, what should we do for her? I don't suppose a capsule like this could be used for spirits, right? The system can create a simulation of the capsule inside a separate spirit space so that she can play whenever she wants to. Great, do it, Ning said. Understood. A different spirit space appeared that did not have time stop capabilities, but Safandra could join the game through there. Safandra quickly entered the space and came back out half a second later. Should I choose Soaring Star Online, or do you plan on playing any other game? She asked. Soaring Star Online? Is that the game's name? Ning asked. Yes, it has around 500,000 players playing right now, she said. What's the second one? Ning asked. Something called Heaven's Conquest, but it only had about 2,000 people playing, Safandra answered. Oh yeah, we're definitely playing the one with more players then, Ning said. He got into the capsule and at the same time, Safandra got into her spirit space. Slowly, Ning felt the air cool down as his body froze. However, his consciousness was already separating from him as he was pulled into a different world. A world that was completely dark. Then, a female voice spoke. Welcome to Soaring Star Online. Light burst out from in front of Ning as the world expanded wide open and some things appeared in front of him. This feels so real, Ning said. Is this real? It is real in the sense that it is happening. But no such physical location is present in this universe. Somehow, even in a game, his system was speaking. I see, he said. Right, don't bother me too much unless there are emergencies. And you won't have to help me or tell me informations. I want to enjoy the game just as I can. Understood. Ning looked around and saw a small platform up front. He slowly walked up and something popped up. Oh, is this character design? He thought. Please make the character you want to play as. Let's see. I like red hair. Short hair obviously. Tall body, but not so tall. Let's see, blue eyes. What else? Ning continued to edit his body as best as he could. He ended up looking like himself to a certain extent, but with red hair, blue eyes, and more well-defined muscle. Once he was done, a blue panel hovered in front of him, not unlike the pseudo-system that Genesis had implemented, and it showed 3 different wings on it. Please choose one of the wings below. It will determine which faction you play from. Factions? Ning wondered what that was. The leftmost one were wings that belonged to a bird, and he could see the feathers even through the silhouette. Birds are a faction. Why? Ning wondered. What sort of game was this? The middle wing was one that belonged to a butterfly. Ning definitely didn't want this one. It just didn't look good. Besides, what if he ended up as a bug person for some reason? The last one looked surprisingly familiar to Ning. Wait, aren't those the same wings Daryl had? He thought. Dragon wings. Dragons are a faction too, huh? He thought. There was no more thinking he needed to do here. Since dragons were obviously the best out there, he clicked on that silhouette and pressed accept. However, even as he did, some words had appeared below the dragon wings silhouette that immediately caused Ning to frown. Fuck. I shouldn't have been so hasty. Light enveloped him slowly as he started disappearing from this world, but the frown in his face slowly changed to a smile. Whatever, I would have still chosen that anyway. Then, he disappeared and appeared somewhere else. Safandra stood in front of her own character, a small girl with a beautiful face, long blue hair, and purple eyes. She pressed accept, and the character disappeared. She looked at her own body and realized that she had changed. She pulled hair and saw that it was blue too. It's already changed, huh? She thought. Then, the panel appeared for her as well to choose the wings from. Safandra looked at the different wings and nodded to herself. I see, so that's how they get the wings, huh? She thought. Every night for the last week after Ning went to sleep, she would sit around watching TV. During that time, she had come to learn about the game, and that was how she was able to tell Ning as well. The feathered wings are for the Angels faction, the butterfly wings are for the neutral faction, and the bat wings are for the demon faction, she said to herself. If I want to have fun, then I definitely can't join the neutral faction. But, between angels and demons. God, I hate demons. Without hesitation, Safandra chose the Angels faction and disappeared from the world of white to a normal world that looked no different from Nulwern. Not much modernness here, huh? She thought and looked around. People all around her either had no wings, or had the angelic wings. She didn't see anyone with neutral wings or demonic wings at all. As she looked around, her attention was pulled back by a panel that appeared in front of her. Quest. Complete the tutorial. Part 1. Tutorial. Locate the training hall and ask to be trained. Quest reward. Complete the tutorial. Part 2. Training hall. Where's that? She thought. She started walking as she now needed to find this location. Ning looked around at where he had arrived at. A red moon hung in the sky, covering the world in its crimson light. Ning looked at his own body and he too had some redness in his color. Oh, I'm wearing clothes already, huh? He thought. Even the black trousers and shirt he wore were also clad in crimson light. Not only that, Ning could see some orange glow from all around the city he was in. The people around him were all with red skin and horns. Some had horns, some didn't. Some had wings, some didn't. It was all dragon wings, or so Ning would have thought had he not read the piece of information before he had arrived here. He had demonic wings. The bat wings were pit black in color with very little definition to them. Ning tried moving them, and they moved at his mental command. Ning was surprised that he could feel them on his back. Even though he had never had a wing before, he somehow could move it like it were an arm. Can I fly? He thought and flapped very fast, but nothing happened. Not even the wind moved around him, and he understood that the wings were there only for visual purposes. Well, I guess I'm a demon now, he thought. What next then? Since it was a game, he didn't worry all about what faction he had arrived as. Given that they were made to choose, each faction would obviously have its own advantage and disadvantage. Just then, a floating blue screen appeared in front of him. Quest. Complete the tutorial. Part 1. Tutorial. Locate the training hall and ask to be trained. Quest reward. Complete the tutorial. Part 2. I see, training hall. I will have to see where that is, he thought. First of all, let's see how my character is. Status. Please complete the tutorial before checking your status. Tisk. He looked around and found a demon without wings. Hey, brother. Do you know where the training hall is? He asked. You talking to me, little maggot? Do you think you're so big that you can just talk to me? Huh? The demon suddenly got aggressive? Ning was a little taken aback, but he didn't fear. I mean, if you don't know then say you don't know, Ning said. Who says I don't know? Why would I not know the training hall that lies in that direction? The demon asked. Oh, thanks, Ning said and turned around to leave. You bastard! Come back here, the demon shouted, but did nothing to follow Ning. Ning walked on through the busy street that was filled with demons. The buildings were made of some sort of glassy rock, most likely obsidian. That seemed especially true when he noticed that he was in what humans would call hell. The grounds were made up of black dirt with occasional lines of flowing lava. The demons walked around with rugged swords that seemed half-heartedly made, and in the distance, Ning could see volcanic mounds that spewed lava continuously. Thank God I don't feel much heat, Ning thought. Otherwise, playing in this place would be miserable. Ning arrived at a location that made a lot of noise. He looked at the words on top of the building that automatically translated to training hall for him. Ning walked inside and looked at everyone that was striking on puppets or getting hit by something. He looked at an elderly demon in a long gown that was sitting to the side. Hello, I wish to train, Ning said. Huh? Do you want to train? Then go hit that wooden posts for a while. Come to me after you've earned a few points in strength, the old demon said. Okay, Ning said. Ding! Quest. Complete the tutorial, part 1, has been completed. Ding! You have a new quest. Quest. Complete the tutorial, part 2. Tutorial. Hit the wooden post to get at least 2 points of STR. Quest rewards. 1. Unlocks the quest. Complete the tutorial, part 3. 2. Unlocks player profile. Ning thought after reading the notification. What the hell are you still doing there? Go right now, the old demon shouted. Yes, I'm going, Ning said and grabbed a wooden sword before going to an empty wooden post, away from many others. Then he struck the post as hard as he could. You had dealt 13 damage. Oh, Ning was a little surprised when the notification appeared. However, it seemed to disappear from his vision when he didn't focus on it, so it wasn't as intrusive. 13 damage. I wonder how that is counted, he thought. He pulled the sword back and hit as hard as he could. You have dealt 14 damage. It increased. Does hitting harder mean I deal more damage? Ning thought. He pulled back the sword again and hit as hard as he could. You have dealt 13 damage. No, that doesn't seem to be the case. It feels random, he thought. What if I don't put any force into my attack? Ning lazily hit the post this time. However, no notification popped up at all. He tried again and it didn't count. He slowly increased the intensity and at some point, he finally gained the notification again. You have dealt 15 damage. Oh, it was 15 this time, Ning thought and continued hitting the post as per the tutorial. However, for some reason, he didn't get any STR increment at all. Ning was worried that he was doing something wrong, but he sighed in relief when he got his first notification. You dealt 14 damage. Congratulations, your STR has increased by 1. Great, Ning thought and continued hitting. Several minutes later, he got the same notifications and his STR increased by 1 again. Ding. Quest. Complete the tutorial, part 2, has been completed. Ding. You have a new quest. Quest. Complete the tutorial, part 3. Tutorial. Get hit by the wooden pole to increase your def and VIT stat. Quest rewards. 1. Unlocks the quest. Complete the tutorial, part 4. Ding. You can now check your player profile. Ooh, player profile, Ning thought. He was about to speak for it when he noticed something hovering at the leftmost corner of his eyes. He glanced, and it came into focus. Player 518456 hash. HP. 220 megapixels. 110. I don't have a name yet. He wondered and clicked on the profile. A status page appeared in front of him in a massive panel. Player 518456 hash. Can change once. Level. 1, 0, 100ths. Class. Reach level 10. Race. Demon title. None equipped. STR. 12 INT. 10 VIT. 10 DEF. 10 AGI. 10 HP. 200. MP. 100. STR. That's strength, right? Ning thought. He quickly understood what the rest must be. What do they do exactly? Can I know? He wondered and tapped around. When he tapped on STR, it gave a small pop-up. STR. Your strength value determines how much damage your normal attacks deal. Your damage will always be in the range of 1.3x to 1.5x your STR stat prior to getting reduced by the enemy. Oh, explain more. Ning tapped everything. In essence, it was simple. Int gave 10 mana per int and a 0.05 mana regeneration per second per point in int. VIT gave 20 HP per VIT and improved one's stamina, which was a hidden value that could be felt but not seen. It also gave HP regeneration, which was about 0.1 HP per point of VIT per second. Def improved physical defense depending on the ratio between the enemy's STR and your def stat. The defense was capped at 75%. AGI improved one's attack speed and movement speed, and according to what Ning read, it also slowed down time for them. Not bad, he thought. Now, what should I name myself? Should I go with my name or? He thought for a moment and typed what he thought was an appropriate name for him. Immortal_energy. Oh, it accepted. Nice, he thought and closed the panel to continue on with his task. Since the quest was over, he was about to go back and do the other quest, when he thought of something. Is this all the STR I can get from this? What happens if I hit more? He thought. So, he pulled back his sword and started hitting the post again and again. For a while, he thought he was doing something stupid and was wasting his time. But when he really thought about it, him playing this game was just wasting time. And he had nearly 250 years to waste as well. Congratulations, your STR has increased by 1. Oh, nice, it works. Once Ning got the motivation he needed, he continued hitting the post again and again. He got one more STR, and then one more STR, but then, he got a notification. You have gained all 5 STR you could from the tutorial. Oh, then that's it for this, huh? He thought and stopped. He took the sword back to the pile and dropped it before going to the wooden post with moving poles stuck on it. Why am I feeling tired though? He wondered. Is my stamina so low? He shook his head and went on to get beat by the poles. He sat in front of the post and was whacked everywhere by the poles that were attached to the post. There was a numbing or electrified sensation around where he was hit, but it didn't hurt at all. His quest ended after increasing def and VIT by 2, but he stayed there to increase it by 3 more times. Finally, after he got all he could, he went on for the next 2 stats. Int was increased by meditating for a while, and he had to meditate a lot. AGI was increased by doing jumping jacks and running around the place for a while. By the end of it, Ning was completely out of stamina, lying on the ground, heaving for breaths. After finishing it all, he now had access to the inventory panel, equipment panel, and skill panel. For now, all of them were empty, but Ning did see that one could have up to 6 different equipment of various types. Ning looked forward to getting those. Ding, quest. Complete the tutorial has been completed. Reward. Get a weapon from the demon trainer. Ning read the notification and walked up to the demon trainer. Sir, I've completed what you've asked for, he said. Not bad, the demon said and pointed to a pile of weapons on the side and said, take one and leave. Thank you, Ning said and walked over to the weapons. He looked around for a spear as that was his weapon of choice, but since there was only a sword, dagger, and wand, Ning was forced to take one of these. He checked the sword. Trashy sword, common, made using the worst of the worst metal available in the demon forgery. STR. 2. Then he checked the dagger. Trashy dagger, common. Made using the worst of the worst metal available in the demon forgery. STR. 1 AGI. 1. Finally, the wand. Trashy wand, common. Made using the worst of the worst wood available in the demon forgery. Int. 2 skill. Fireball. Release a small fire at your opponent dealing 140% of your int as damage. Cooldown. 10 seconds. Mana cost. 10 megapixels. Ooh, the wand has a skill, he thought and picked it up. He wasn't very used to sword, and he didn't feel like using a dagger, so in the end, he chose the wand. Besides, he also wanted to see how skills worked in the game. After taking the wand, a panel popped up, asking if he wanted to equip it. Ning accepted and checked the equipment panel to see that one of the slots had been filled up by the wand. Then, he exited the training hall and started wondering what he should be doing now. Just then, another panel popped up. Hint. The player should go out of the city to hunt monsters and earn experience. After gaining enough experience, you will level up. I see. Out of the city it is then.